Hey, welcome everybody. Here we are at another episode of The Warriors, Some of the Answer, coming to you from the world famous Carousel Room in fabulous downtown Wamego, Kansas, in front of a live audience. We got to pay some bills here today. We got to thank Cage Manufacturing and Indigenous Group, Mr. Moomaw up in Meriden, Kansas. He'll take care of any of your dog kennel needs, any of your special car setup needs, and any of your tactical equipment that you need. Hey, he's got some really great deals on Holosun right now. Check it out on the internet. Give him a call. Roach Media Group. What can I say, man? Look at this setup. Like, it's freaking awesome. Cody Roach crushes it every time, brings it. He doesn't count down very good, but other than that, he does pretty good. All right. So, yeah, hook up with Cody Roach. You need wedding pictures. You need, boudoir pictures. You need couples pictures in the bedroom. It doesn't really matter. Give Cody Roach a call. He'll be there. He'll take care of you. Anything that you need. The man is a technical genius. All right. What can I say about his brother, Connor Roach? I mean, old Connor, he's running a catering business now. He's called it the Krusty Roach Catering. I don't know that he's up on the internet yet or on the website, but give Cody a call or find his website, find his cell number. Give him a call. He'll take care of your food situation, anything that you need, all right? Juan De Leon, hey, he's representing Mindy's Snack Shack, and he crushed the carnitas tonight and all the other fixings. Good group there. Ann White with the Vermilion Valley Equine Center. If you want to get rid of your savings account and your checking account, you give Ann a call, send your child up there, and she will travel the world with that kid showing horses. But the one thing that I promise, especially if she's a girl, she won't have time to date a boy until she's about 23 years old. So, that's not a bad side of, the old horse showing arena area, okay? Heather Beggs, I hope I said that right, because I don't know. I just met her once today, but she showed up. She did some yoga with our group today. Very nice lady. She opened a new yoga studio in Alma, Kansas. If you're looking to get flexible, give Heather a call. Over here behind the camera, I don't know if we're flashing over to our producer, Patrick, but we've got Venandi Beard Products. What can I say? I mean, there's nothing to say. Just look at the magnificence of Venandi Beard Products. And Jekyll and Hyde soaps. I didn't use much soap tonight, didn't have much time, but Jekyll and Hyde soaps will get your ass clean, all right? So anyway, that's kind of what we're looking at. That's paid our bills. We're good to go there. Anybody? Did I miss anybody? Anything out there? We all solid? Right on. Okay. Hey, I gotta take a minute here on a serious note. My sincere condolences go out to the 284th ASOS. They're burying one of their warriors in the morning, and two others are in the hospital, injured pretty badly. So, training exercises happen. I mean, training disasters, tragedies happen, when you're training, on the edge of things. And, our TACP community is definitely diminished tonight. But I also, while I mourn the loss of a young man and, I mourn for his family and things like that, I would never disrespect his memory by, not acknowledging the work that he went to achieve what he achieved, and not acknowledging the desire that these young men have to do what they do for their country. So we're going to take a little toast here. I don't have much to say, not a real good one, but one of the TACP creeds is death on call. So we got it from here, brother. All right, rest easy. Tonight's podcast, we just finished 3 challenging, hot days in Wabaunsee County in Eskridge, Kansas, in the Flint Hills. It was beautiful over there. I can't complain about that, but it was a challenging 3 days. It's the first time that we've ever taken a whack at any kind of a retreat like this, I don't know. I think I stole this, but I don't know who I stole it from. Probably from Amanda, but I don't know. But we're kind of dubbing this post-traumatic growth retreats. I think that rings really true. Defense Midwest is kind of splitting off in some of the things we do. I mean, we're still doing our training. Our primary focus of Defense Midwest is going to be training, but we've just like lit up a new company called the Resolute Ranch and Resiliency Company, 501c, and it's going to be dedicated to doing more of this type of work in the same facilities that Defense Midwest is operating out of. I've heard this a lot over the last 3 days. What's meant to be happens, and I met Miss Amanda Held in is that how you pronounce it? Miss Amanda Held in a bar through Ann White. I wouldn't have went to the bar if it wasn't for Ann White, obviously, but I agreed to go there because that's where she wanted to meet. But I met her. I met her husband. I met a charming young lady. I don't remember her name.
Jacqueline.
There, okay. We had a good conversation. I had this warm and fuzzy feeling about the people. I had no clue about the program to speak of, but I had a warm and fuzzy feeling about the people. We took a stab in the dark, and I basically twisted 6 ladies' arms into showing up and beta testing this. We had a 7th that couldn't make the whole thing, but she showed up for a little piece of it and added to the dynamics of the group. So anyway, Amanda Held from HOOVES out of Ohio. What city?
Swanton, Ohio, which is right next to Toledo.
The Toledo Mud Hens.
The Toledo Mud Hens, yes.
Sir. The guy from MASH.
Jamie Farr?
No, that's not his name.
Sorry, that's the golfer.
No.
Who's the MASH guy?
Yeah, who's the MASH guy? Somebody, come on, Klinger.
Klinger yeah,
was from Toledo.
Thank you. Yes.
Klinger was from Toledo.
Yep.
Yes. Did you ever meet Klinger?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But we have a restaurant called Tony Paco's, and I know all the celebrities come and they sign the hot dog buns, and I know
Really?
Yeah.
Why haven't they ever invited me?
We'll work on it.
Okay.
You might be the next bun on the wall.
We'll get into HOOVES down the line a little bit here, Amanda, but I'm particularly interested in basically, what was your, like, where did you grow up? Did you grow up there? Have you stayed there your whole life? Like, tell me something about your earlier years, your childhood.
I did grow up there, and I feel like, my story is kind of non-conventional, but I grew up.
Isn't it your story? Your story?
It is my story. We just learned that, didn't we? But my parents were city people. They had never been animal people, and certainly not ever been around horses. But I always say I was born this way. So around the age of 3, I just started saying horse. And fortunately, my mom was supportive enough to foster that. Also, like you, she didn't know the tax that would take on her bank account.
That's true.
But look what came out of it. So she did get me riding lessons early on, and it just became my passion. Through that awkward teenage time where you don't know how you show up in the world, you're socially awkward, and you don't really know what you want. I really found solace with horses. So
what was your passion in the equestrian world as far as competing or events? Or
I feel like any kid in my area at that age, I started out showing Western pleasure, but I really just wanted to barrel race, because when you're a kid, you want to go fast. So I in my younger years, I did a lot of Western and Western pleasure, barrel racing, and then I found an affinity for dressage, classical riding, and then from there, I really took an interest in jumping, in cross-country jumping, did that for a short time, and then my riding career ended when I joined the military for quite a while. So
in terms of, like, if we're recruiting students for Ann here, what would be the single discipline that you think adds the very best balance to an equestrian?
Dressage, hands down, 100 times. It changed everything about my riding. And I think no matter what discipline you ride, if you start with dressage riding, that you can take it from anywhere. And having personally gotten a lesson from Anne, I will say that she's phenomenal. And I was really honored to get some of her time because she's top notch for sure.
Anne used to bring in a dressage instructor or whatever you call them, and my daughter would cry for a day before she had to go ride in front of this woman. I have no idea.
Must have been a good instructor.
Yeah, I just paid for it. I really didn't participate in it much, except the one time she made me ride a 25-foot hull horse. And,
that was a great story.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
So you tell me a little bit more about your eventing. What were your goals, and how old were you when you got into eventing, and what were your goals out of it?
Yeah, so actually, I swore at one time that I would never sit in an English saddle because, that was taboo from the Western side of things. And so right before I got out of horses to join the military, one of my friends convinced me to sit in this English saddle and pop over some small jumps. And, I imagine with anybody that gets into that industry, like it's an adrenaline rush and, you just want more of it and it's very accomplishing. And I actually got into it just barely, and then I ended up joining the military, and I got completely out of horses for several years. And then as an adult in my early 20s, I ended up buying a farm with my dad, and a dressage instructor and a dressage and eventing instructor just happened to show up at my barn one day asking if she could train out of it. And it was kind of like, oh, well, I kind of entertained that once.
So, kind of sounds like universally it was meant to happen.
It may have been the universe.
It may have been.
So, and she was brilliant. I ended up with this little Arab horse that I had rescued, full of worms, skin and bones, just bought her to save her. And as we rehabbed her, my trainer got on her and she was like, Amanda, this horse is trained up through 3rd level dressage. Let's pop her over a jump. And so we did, and she could jump, and she was phenomenal. So she started really serious. That's when I seriously started training. So I was probably 23. And we worked so hard, and we had our first show booked at Waterloo, and I loved it so much. My goals were actually to go to the Olympics.
Who was your favorite Olympic rider at the time?
At the time, I feel like, oh my gosh. The horse's name is Teddy.
Oh, I remember Teddy.
Do you remember Teddy?
Yeah.
Morrison. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obsessed.
Yes, I remember Teddy.
What's that? Yeah,
yes,
the O'Connors.
That's
there
right.
we go. Yeah, obsessed. And then, it was like a week before our show. And again, I have to chalk this up to the universe at some point. But my little mare got butt to butt with another horse in the pasture, and he blew out her pastern. So that was the game over. And, so I kind of gave up on that dream temporarily. And then I found this thoroughbred off the track, and he was one of the most magnificent moving horses I've ever seen in my life. And he was going to be my next project. We were definitely going to the Olympics. Like, I was going to compete in Rolex, and I got him home, and he has never been sound. And I spent thousands of dollars. Acupuncture, chiropractic, you name it. He's still in my pasture, and he's a lovely horse for what I do now.
God.
But it was at that point.
What is he? How old was he then?
He was 3 when I got him.
3. So he's been in your pasture. You were 23, so he's 5 now in your pasture?
No, he's older than that.
Well, if you're 25-ish.
Are you being funny?
No.
Oh, I'm 40. I'm going to be 40 in like 2 weeks.
Oh, well, that surprises me.
Yeah. So, no, I had got him it was a year before my dad died. So I got him in 2013. My dad died. So I got him in 2012. And it just, it wasn't where I was meant to be. I got back into the show world for a little bit, and it just wouldn't work out. And that was really the reason I bought this farm with my dad, was because I had these big aspirations.
What was his aspirations?
to make me happy.
Nice. I like that.
My dad had no interest in buying a horse farm, but he did have an interest in supporting me in my dreams, which is really how I've made it here today.
Where was your mom at that time?
Oh, my mom, she was down the road. They divorced, so, but she lived down the road. So, she was down there. And, we've had a challenging relationship, but, it's good now. We worked through all that. But yeah, so that didn't work out. I had started going to shows again. I got this horse. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be this big time horse trainer. I'm going to go to the Olympics. And
where did you like showing at?
So I showed locally. We have Harry Hughes Equestrian Center.
Okay.
And then we have also the University of Findlay. I don't know if you know the University of Findlay. Yeah. Okay. So, I did some dressage camps and then just a couple little shows out there. And, I did take one of my little Mustangs to a dressage show and we got first place, but there was only like 3 people in the class. So I don't know how impressive that was. But
I never count the number of people in the competition.
You never
I only count my finish.
We did.
I was first.
We did. I got the blue ribbon.
I was the only one that competed.
But, I started seeing things. And again, like I think every place in the country kind of has different ethics and philosophies on horse training. And I had, when I was on the Air Force Academy, I learned from some people that were practicing natural horsemanship. So when I moved back to Swanton, that wasn't really, it wasn't big like it was now. So I was going to these shows. I was primarily taking my Mustangs, which I didn't always place because Mustangs aren't really show horses, but I didn't care. But I didn't like what I was seeing. I didn't really fit in again with some of the other people, and I certainly didn't have the money that other people had to, buy all the fancy things.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me that. Man,
No,
I can tell you about not having the money when you compete out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it just, things started to go wrong. And, at the time I was so upset. I was like, why is all this happening? Like, all I want to do is have this career with horses and all these things are just going wrong. My horse gets hurt, this happens and that happens. And I didn't really understand it, but I just made the decision to shut everything down. And I didn't want to do it anymore. My kids were little and, and I'm sure as well as anyone, like, it's a hard life because the time that you're supposed to spend with your kids is also the time that people want you to give their kids lessons. So, it was a lot. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I just shut it all down. And people are like, Amanda, you're crazy. Like and we only had a facility that could hold 40 horses, but we were full. My lesson schedule was full. I had all these students that wanted.
And that was your farm
to go. That was my farm with my dad. And I was just like, okay, this doesn't feel right anymore. I can't do it. And at the time I thought I was failing, especially like when you are in an industry of competition and you aren't doing well, you just feel worthless, like you're a failure. And that's how I felt. I was like, I'm definitely failing at life right now. And I talked my dad into buying me this horse farm. And now I'm like telling him I want to shut it all down. And I felt like I was disappointing him. And, and he didn't care. He just wanted me to be happy, whatever that looked like. But it was in kind of that moment where I surrendered. I finally listened to my heart after trying to beat my head against the wall and find another horse and find another opportunity. And I just said, no, I'm going to stop. And, I feel like there's something about the number 3. And so it was really like 3 days after I made this decision, I got a phone call because I had been asked to go down to Cincinnati and I would go to all the Mustang adoptions and I would show like, hey, if you want to adopt a Mustang, here's what you should do when you get it home. And I would give a demonstration on Mustang gentling. And I was going down to this fairground to give this demonstration, and this guy calls me out of the blue and he's like, hey, I heard you're going to be here. Do you think you could pick this? It's like a Sulphur Springs Mustang, which is like a highly desirable type of horse, which is also still in my pasture, by the way. But he was like, hey, I'd like this horse. Can you pick it up for me? So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll pick it up. And I grabbed the horse for the guy and he showed up. And he was like, hey, I do equine assisted psychotherapy. And I was like, well, what? You do psychotherapy on a horse? Like, that's weird. Who are you? What's going? I don't understand. And he said, no, I don't do therapy on the horse. The horse from the ground, not riding, actually reflects the person, and they can start sorting through their life. And I was like,
Pretty sure my daughter's horse had psychotherapy, acupuncture, chiropractics, veterinary bills, horseshoeing. The bills would just come from anywhere. But go on, I'm tracking with yours. Yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, I knew in that moment, like, it was like just that moment of clarity of like, that's my purpose. Like, that's what I want to do. And that's actually what I really have been doing all along with clients. I just hadn't realized it, because when I was stationed out in Colorado, that's when I really got into the natural horsemanship. And that's where I got my first Mustang. And, my first Mustang is really the horse that saved my life. I was not in a good space, and I learned that in order for her to want to interact with me, I had to show up different than what I was showing up. So I learned these natural horsemanship tools. I came home, and then I started getting a lot of clients that were maybe like women who didn't have horses when they were young, but now they have money. Little did they know they were about to spend it all.
They were about to lose it all, but yeah.
But, so they had money, and they bought these horses, and they bought these well-trained, expensive horses, and 3 or 4 months into it, these well-trained horses are trying to kill them, and they don't understand why. So I kind of got that reputation. Like, people never really called me to ride a good horse. It was only like, if no other trainer in town will ride your horse, just call Amanda. Like, she's crazy. She'll get on it. But that's how I ended up with a lot of these women. And so I was like teaching them, you got to show up different. It's not your horse. Your horse isn't the problem. You're the problem. So you got to show up differently. So I was doing all of this, having no idea that I was actually starting the foundational principles of the work that I was about to learn. So I know there's like lots of moving parts and pieces to this. But yeah, so he starts telling me about equine psychotherapy, and I was like, this is my life. And I went right away. I found a program called EGALA. It's kind of like the industry standard in equine assisted learning and psychotherapy. Got started right away. And
I'll tell you, that's not abnormal. I mean, you may think it is, but it's not abnormal. I always said at Vermilion Valley Equine Center, while Ann is a great riding instructor, it was the circle of love amongst the people that showed up and did the things for Ann. Then they got more out of the showing up in the circle than like the riding side at all, And there's been a lot of girls out of her deal that put themselves through college riding, but that was never the lesson. It was the circle of love was the lesson. Now, don't get on the outside of the circle of love, because then that's like the 7th layer of hell. Yes,
you don't want to piss us off.
And some of us have been there on the 7th layer of hell on the outside of the circle of love. But
I can only imagine what that would be like. I would not want to be on that side.
Tell me, you said you were at the Air Force Academy?
So I lived on the Air Force Academy. I was actually stationed at Schriever Air Force Base. And my ex-husband, the reason we lived on the academy is because he was a combat arms instructor. So he taught all the cadets how to shoot.
Uh-huh.
And then I worked in the command support staff at Schriever in Spacecom.
Where did you do your basic at?
Lackland Air Force Base, Texas.
Oh, yeah, Lackland. San Antonio, baby.
Yeah, it was...
Did you go to SeaWorld when you...
I did.
Yeah, everybody does,
I
right?
did.
Because it's the discount thing. You get SeaWorld.
Yeah. See, every time someone came in town to... Well, yeah. And so it's funny because I went there, right? And I graduated. Actually, the first thing I did upon coming off of the Air Force Base after graduating basic training is I made my dad take me to the Gap and buy me new clothes because I had just been hideous for 6 weeks and I couldn't handle it. But but I did, and then I did my tech school in Biloxi, Mississippi, and I actually joined to be an air traffic controller.
Oh, really?
But, if you spent any time around me, you would probably know that's not the best career for me. So I actually self-eliminated halfway through the training. And then the Air Force got to pick my job, and so I became a command support staff or a personnelist, which is interesting because I've kind of always played this support role. So I went to basic training at Lackland, went to my tech school in Mississippi, and then my orders were right back to Lackland.
Oh, really?
And I remember people were getting all these really cool orders, like Italy and California, and then they're like, "You're going back to where you just came from," and I cried. I ran to my little dorm room, and I just threw myself on the bed, and I cried. I didn't want to go back there.
Did you ever float the river at New Braunfels?
No, I didn't,
No?
but all my friends did.
Okay, all right.
All my friends did. I didn't make it there. But so I ended up actually getting stationed at the 342nd Training Squadron, which is Combat Control, Pararescue, EOD, and SEER. And after being around all those guys, it was the best thing I ever could have done. And, I was their support staff, but they were cool. They took me everywhere. And I learned early on, if you take care of people, you will have a good life, because somebody will always take care of you. So I got to jump out of an airplane with the Golden Knights because they took me on a TDY with them, because I'm like, if I make sure these guys have everything they need, they'll take me places. And they did, and it was cool.
If there was one thing that I could ever leave with anybody that I've ever worked for, is law enforcement, special operations, whatever it is that if you take care of your people, they'll take care of you. Except today in law enforcement, they're just all about their fucking retirements and keeping their political power. But anyway, let's go on with your life.
So I that's where I really...
Why are you pushing my buttons, Amanda?
I know. Sorry. I've had a amazing military career. I think, joining the military definitely saved my life at that time. I wanted to get out of my small town. I wanted to see the world, and it did all that for me. I didn't really struggle until I left active duty.
Yes, but I have another question about Lackland.
Yeah.
What is your intrinsic opinion of the Alamo?
My opinion of the Alamo?
Yeah, surely you toured the Alamo.
Well, yeah, we took everybody that came to visit went to the Alamo.
And you read all the names on the plaques.
Yeah.
Why were there so many Masons there?
I honestly have never really paid attention.
Oh,
because that's not really in
all
my
right,
scope of awareness.
So you're not going to answer that one for me. That's all right. I've just been looking for an answer.
I just know that we went to Fuddruckers because it was across the street, and I got the burger because food is one of my highest values. So if you want to ask me what was on the menu that day, I'll tell you that, but I don't know what names are on the Alamo.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. We'll move on then. I just really have always wondered what the top secret conspiracy thing that occurred there, but I don't know. Anyway.
Not in my scope of awareness.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So where were we at before I brought up the Alamo?
Yeah. So I was stationed at Lackland, and I tried to take care of all the special forces guys in case I ever needed a favor.
Yeah.
So, great career in the military. Got out for a couple of years and then ended up in the Guard, which again came just at the right time. So I try to always put myself in a position where I can be helpful by taking care of people. So I then became the command support staff for our F-16 pilots at the 180th Fighter Wing, and I took care of those guys. And then I ended up in security forces, and I took care of those guys. So I feel like that's taking care of, I haven't done anything extraordinary in my military career, but,
Have you known extraordinary people?
I've supported many extraordinary
And
people.
did they like you?
Yes. I hope so.
They
didn't tell me otherwise.
Then doesn't that stand for something?
I hope so. And I just 2 months ago got a first sergeant position at the 127th Fighter Wing.
Jeez, I'm sorry. I did not give you the level of respect that you deserved this last 3 days.
I don't need it. I just want to serve, But it's great because there were so many doors closed to me at times in my life that I was so bitter and resentful for at the time.
What do you think the reason the doors were closed? Like, I don't know what you mean. That's a rather broad statement.
Well, like I would, with all the horse stuff I wanted to do,
Okay.
I wanted to have this big showing career.
So money and quality horses.
Money, quality horses, the right people, the right place, the right time. And even in my military career, when I was stationed at the 342nd Training Squadron, I fell in love with the idea of becoming a SEER instructor. And my chief was actually getting me out of my career field to get me a school date.
Because they have some females that are SEER instructors. Yeah,
they
right.
do.
Yeah.
And that was I would just watch those guys run by my window every day with the telephone pole. And I was like, I can do that. I'm a horse chick. I'm tough. I can handle pain and all that. And they had gotten me, they were getting me out of my career field. And I found out I was pregnant with my daughter.
Oh. So the interesting thing about closed doors is I don't feel like I've ever had a closed door in front of me.
Really?
But I'm a white male, I don't, in the middle of Kansas, there's not a lot of closed doors to people like me here. You know what I mean?
That's interesting.
But my daughter, they went to I think it was the Maclay. It was that big horse show, and she listed Ann as her trainer, and I'm watching her on TV because I didn't go. I never got to go. Only Circle of Love people could go on horse shows, but that's okay. I watched it on TV, and she came out. She rode, beautiful. She really, I don't know anything about horse showing, but it looked like a really nice ride to me. Closed doors. The announcers never mentioned her name, never mentioned her trainer's name, and talked about some guy who Brianna had actually beat riding at Ocala a few times. And the main reason was because the announcer had sold him his horse that he was going to ride in the Maclay that day. So they never even acknowledged this girl from Kansas, had her one shot on TV. And so that's a closed door.
Yeah.
I never had
For
those.
sure.
So, closed doors are interesting to me because I haven't experienced them.
Yeah, it's interesting to speak with somebody that hasn't really had those because I don't know, probably because I work with a lot of people that have a lot of closed doors.
So I say I haven't had closed doors. We had quite a few closed doors. I opened them with rams and explosives and shotguns if I chose. Yeah, I opened all the closed doors
cool.
at the time of the day that I chose and the way that I chose. So but I haven't had any closed doors that have limited me.
Yeah. Well, I think that when you enter a closed door, you have an option. You can be bitter about it, or you can look at why you're being redirected. And every time that I reflect in my life, every memory I go back to where I feel like I was a failure, now looking back this amount of time later, I see how that was preparing me for everything that I'm doing today. And if one of those bad things wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be able to serve at the level that I'm serving now. And all I've ever wanted is to serve.
So before we jump into HOOVES, what do you think, what would be a defining moment in your childhood, just a memory, just pops in your, what would be something, and it ain't might be a defining moment, but something that, if you think about it all the time, it's part of who you are.
So I would say the most defining moment in my childhood was when I got caught leaving for lunch in my high school, and I got caught and I got sent to the principal's office. And my principal called my mom and made my mom come in the room. And my principal looked at me and was like, "You will never amount to anything in your life. You are a loser, and you're just never going to amount to anything because you don't take life seriously." And of course, my mom just completely lost her mind on him. But the damage was done. He looked me dead in the eyes and told me I would never be anything.
Do you think he's still alive?
I don't know, Mr. Shaw. His name was Mr. Shaw.
We should look him up because you know how you have these challenge coins.
Yeah.
You should go shove one up his ass.
Maybe I'll let you do that for me, Buck, since you don't have closed
I'd
doors.
be happy to go do that for you. So
But it was the greatest gift because I was really fucking up my life. Can we say fuck?
You can. We say that regularly around here.
No, but I was I didn't take it, so it was twofold because I really didn't. I was a little bit of a rogue teenager. I'm sure you can't imagine me being like that. But I didn't like to be told what to do. I didn't like structure. I didn't take things seriously. I don't think I was a loser, but I think there was a little bit, there were obviously reasons I was sitting in front of him in his office. Did it warrant him saying that to me? Probably not. But, I wasn't in the principal's office because I was an exceptional student. But it was like a wake-up call for me. And, it led me on the whole path of joining the military and straightening my life out and doing the things that I need to do. So I have nothing but gratitude for him at this point. But, that was a hard pill to swallow, especially when you're an awkward teenage girl and you already have all these insecure thoughts about yourself, and then to have them validated by the highest person in your educational institution,
How big was your school?
Well, I went to vocational school because I couldn't make it in real high school. So I had to go to a vocational school. Which, already we got made fun of for that because, we can't make it in real high school. And then I went for art. So we were even the outcasts of the vocational school because at least the other guys were learning plumbing and swinging hammers or clerical work or hairdressing. And then we're just over here painting pictures all day.
And I don't like to be a judgmental person, but I would just say by your whiteboard and your writing, I don't see your artistic background.
By my whiteboard.
Yeah, your whiteboard in the last 3 days. Your
whiteboard.
Oh,
my writing.
Yeah, and your writing, your handwriting. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm an abstract artist.
Oh, okay,
no.
Abstract. That's good.
No, I did paint a lot of pictures, which my husband makes fun of now, especially the one of the girl rollerblading down the road. I will never hear the end of that one. But anyway,
we'll post that up on the Facebook
I'll have to find it.
Yeah.
I may have thrown my portfolio after that. Because when we first met, of course, you got to tell your significant other everything about your life. And I'm like, you want to see my portfolio from high school? And I was showing him all these pictures. And he was like, why did you paint a girl rollerblading down the road? And I was like, because we had to do an action shot. And he was, yeah. Anyway, next time you see him, you'll have to just bring that up. And,
I will.
And
I will.
We'll all laugh at me.
I don't know your husband very well, but I like to give compliments where they're deserved, and he has the softest beard that I've ever felt in my entire life.
He does. It's magnificent. And
well, I don't know if it's magnificent, but it's soft.
It is soft.
The softest beard I've ever felt.
He's often complimented on his fabulous beard. It's fabulous.
What would be your the thing that stands out in your military career, that incident, that one moment, that thing, whether it's great, what pops out? One moment.
Well, this isn't really a proud moment.
It doesn't matter what pops out.
But I had actually interviewed for a first sergeant position in 2012, and they told me hands down that they were going to give it to me. And I went out that night, and I had actually somebody try to attack me in the parking lot, and I had been drinking, and I fled from this person, and I got pulled over, and I got a DUI.
Oh.
And you cannot be, you can't.
Not in today's Air Force.
Yeah, you can't do that. And actually, at the time, our adjutant general had a zero tolerance policy on DUIs. Even though the pilot that got one the same night as me got to stay in, but
there's always some people that So you can't have.
I was ostracized, and I wasn't even a regular partier at that time. I just went out one night and made some bad decisions. But so I lost it. I lost that opportunity, and I had to find another base to take me because I couldn't stay. They weren't going to retain me at the unit I was in, and so I went to Indiana because they'll apparently take anybody. But, they took me. I had to write, a letter, do a waiver. They had a waiver. But at the time, I just thought I had ruined everything because I held my career in such high regards, and then I just destroyed it with one bad decision.
So when you got to Indiana, was there a sergeant, I don't know what, master sergeant, I don't know what they're called in the Air Force, an E8, E9, or a commander that for whatever reason said, no, this is an asset to us?
Yeah, well, on paper I look pretty good as a personnelist because I have a 7 level, which probably doesn't mean anything to you. But, I have experience and they needed people. So they're like, oh, well, this girl has a lot of experience. And, I won't say that. But anyway, a lot of people get in trouble and,
Sure.
It just happens, right? Because we're all humans.
Yeah.
But, they just they needed people. And I had a good background and skills, so they, and actually now that I'm really thinking about it, I do. I called my chief from the 180th and asked her, at my chief at the time, and I was like, can you phone a friend for me? And she did. So it was like a word of mouth thing, but it got me there.
Yeah.
And it saved my career. But even then, like, I still had to work. Then I had to work really hard to redeem myself, right? Because you have to redeem yourself from your poor decisions. But I did redeem myself, and I got a lot of.
Is redemption harder institutionally, or is redemption harder inside your own head?
Oh, I'm sure it definitely inside your own head, 100 times over, right? Because we're our worst critics, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, until you get to that moment where you can understand why what happened, then you just beat the shit out of yourself in your head. So, in my experience, but that's again another thing that led me into the work that I'm in now is, we can't change what happens in the past, but we can change how we move forward from it. And I've endured a lot of challenges. Some I perceive as totally my fault. Others I perceive as things outside of my control happening. But no matter where it's come from, there's definitely been value in it, and it's all helped me get to where I'm at today.
So where you're at today is running a company, organization called HOOVES, and those are capital letters,
Yes.
spelled the common manner.
Yes.
HOOVES, yes, in capital letters. Is there a period between each one?
There is, because
HOOVES period in between each letter.
yes.
Okay.
Being from the military, I had to make the program an acronym because that's how we live. We live and die by the acronyms. So it stands for Healing of Our Veterans Equine Services.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Oh.
I'm looking. Usually I have an assistant that's paying attention to me when they detect that I have needs.
No, he's talking. So when I started the organization, it was actually called Riverbend Equine Therapy, which is ironic because what I do now is not therapy.
Thank you.
This gentleman had come that I got the Mustang for, and he was supposed to
What
take.
year was this? Just for
2009.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was 2009, and he actually ended up getting cancer. So he came. He told me about the equine psychotherapy. He asked me to put 30 days of ground training on this Mustang. And then like 2 weeks after he left, he called me back and said, I have cancer. I can't take the horse. And, that's a whole nother story. But that horse ended up being my dad's favorite horse. So he's also still in my pasture. They're all still in my pasture.
All our horses are still in our pastures.
All our horses are still in our pastures.
Some of our neighbors' horses are in our pastures.
Yes. Yes. So I get this certification in 2009. I open this 501c3, get my 501c3 status, open this organization, and I'm so young and like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I'm like, I'm going to do great things, so I'm just going to put out a press release, and everybody's going to come to my program, and everybody's going to give me donations, and that didn't happen. Actually, nobody signed up for my program for like 6 months. So it got to the point where I had to call my friend that was helping me, and we had to trick her son into coming out to do the program because we couldn't get anyone to come out. Because I later on learned that most veterans are not seeking therapy.
Especially in 09.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially then.
Back then you could still lose your career.
Absolutely.
It wasn't even talked about back
No.
then. So we went to my friend's son and we were like, hey, we're going to do like a photo shoot video and we just need a model, and he was very handsome and muscly and he was like, oh, I could be your model, and it was great.
Kind of like Mike White. Stand up, Mike. Just stand up. Stand up, Mike. See? If you want it. Yeah, that's.
Just like that.
Yeah, just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah. Only a little younger.
So, we just went through the exercises. I didn't even speak to him. We were friends at the time, so he didn't want to share anything personal with me. So we're like, okay, here are the exercises that you have to do, and we're just going to take pictures and videos of you doing them. But anybody that's been through this work knows that you can't really, that's like not a thing. If you're in there doing an exercise, you're going to be impacted in some way. Like you really can't escape that. So he came out, he did all the exercises we asked him to do, and then he left, and he didn't say anything else, and I didn't really talk to him. And I got more into running this nonprofit, and I realized how incredibly hard it was going to be and how it was nothing like I thought it would be. And I was like, I'm giving up. This is too hard. I can't do it. And he heard that I was going to shut the program down. And he called his mom, and he was like, you need to call her, and you need to tell her that this saved my life. This is the only thing that's worked for me. And she can't ever stop doing this. And so, when I heard, because I didn't know, I didn't think it did anything. I didn't even think I helped him. And so when I heard that, it was like, that was another pivotal moment of, okay, I can never stop. I can never stop doing this. And there's a lot of times, not anymore, but there were a lot of times on the way that I did want to give up. But I always thought about him. And, now he went on from that experience to become a social worker, and he now helps other veterans who are struggling. So, if 3 exercises in one day can do that much for one person, I just had to hang on to that and keep growing and building the program.
What's the deal in the movies where you try to figure out actors in movies and how they're all related, like 6 times
Like the
removed?
Kevin Bacon?
What is it?
7 degrees of separation.
But almost the opposite direction, 7 degrees of separation up
Yeah,
in touching other people.
totally. We call it the ripple effect now.
Oh, that's a genius term. Like you threw a rock in water and it just did ripples.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I didn't come up with it.
Amazing. I don't know where you
adopted it.
I don't know where you
I know, it's really original,
invented
isn't
that
it?
at.
It's original.
Wow. God, I am not a smart man, but sometimes things like that, I really like, God, I wish I'd have thought of that.
Me too.
So we have hooves. We can talk about the progression of hooves and how it came and went, but I want to talk about some things that I saw in the last 3 days. And I'm looking at them. I'm understanding I'm not completely understanding your perspective because you are kind of intelligent. But I want to talk about axiology. And I teach these types of things, but I've never heard the term axiology. I just teach it as a conflict of morals and ethics within your workspace or within your religious space or within your whatever, or your relationships, whatever it is. I constantly see people who have morals that are outside the ethical boundaries of the organization they work for, or they have morals that are outside the relationship status that they're in. And I like I said, I'm not smart, so I simplify it to morals and ethics. But I was fascinated by axiology, and I would like you to talk a little bit about axiology.
Sure, absolutely. So it's really a philosophical concept, and I think one of the things that I frequently hear people say, and even over the past 3 days have heard, is that a lot of people grasp these concepts, they just call it different things. And so when I was first learning this work, the guy that I look up to and have learned a lot from is Dr. John DeMartini. And so he calls them values.
Is that with vodka or is that with gin?
Depends on your axiology.
Okay, all right. That's fair. That's very fair.
Is that fair? So, we started hearing them as values, and then I was like, yeah, but I don't feel like that's all encompassing. And like when I was teaching this work and I was calling it values, like people would get confused with like core values or religious values or societal values. And so I just felt like that wasn't the right word for me. So then it evolved to drivers, because a lot of these answers to these questions are what drives you, like what gets you out of the bed every day, what motivates you, what inspires you. So for a while I was calling it drivers, and then I was wrapping up I'm still almost done, but I was wrapping up my degree in psychology, my master's, and I was reading some philosophical article, and they were talking about axiology. And then I was also talking to my mentor, and then she said axiology, and I was like, ooh, I've heard that word twice. Like, let's dig a little bit deeper. And so I feel like, axiology encompasses all of the things that make you who you are. So it's not just your values. It's not just what drives you. It's all the traits and characteristics and unique things about you that make you you. So there are people that can have similar characteristics, similar traits, similar values, but nobody on the planet has the same values as you or me. It's as unique as a fingerprint. So I feel like axiology is a powerful and memorable word that encompasses everything that's unique about us or to us.
So the thing that resonated with me about that is, and I don't know when it was, 10, 15 years ago. Again, I don't know whether it's true or not because I don't read books too much anymore and stuff like that. But I came across a purported quote by Muhammad Gandhi. And it is better to be violent if there is violence in our hearts than to put on the cloak of nonviolence to cover impotence.
Yeah.
And I really attached that being, a relatively not really nice guy. Like, it's like, hey, it's okay to be who you are. And so it was kind of an excuse to go ahead and, in a way it was an excuse, but in another way it's like, yeah, I mean, there are people that are cut out to do certain things. And in my line of work, I see a lot of people who watch TV shows or movies that want to be that, but that aren't cut out to do that. So I see it from both ways.
Yeah.
I see it from hey, there's a lot of people that are really equipped to do violence. There's a lot of people that want the chicks and everything that goes around with people who can do violence, but can't when it comes down to it. So the axiology thing, I was backdooring into this 10, 15 year, almost, it's almost like making excuses for things in the past because you found out some future information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great quote. And, again, the danger of this work, just like many things, is it can be used for good and it can be used for evil. It's up to every one of us to hold integrity to doing this work. But I think at the end of the day, what it boils down to is just really authenticity and being in full expression. And I think that's the beauty of the horses. And I think if there's one thing that we can learn from these horses is that, if they feel something, they express it. But the moment they're done expressing it, they let it go. And it's like it never happened. And so I tried, like when I started observing this in the horses and noticing this, I try to do it in my life. And, again, a lot of the things I was teaching as a horse trainer have cross-correlated into the work that I do now. But when I would be coaching people, they would have to discipline their horse because their horse would be doing something undesirable. And then they would discipline the horse, and then it would turn into this like big explosion after the discipline happened. And it wasn't because the horse was mad. It was because the person discipline the horse, and then they were like, oh my God, I just disciplined the horse, right? So it was the person creating that. And I think it's the same thing, if we've gotten to a point where we're polarized in any emotion, it's because there's been a judgment of what we've done or a repression. So if violence has gotten to a point where it's dangerous, it's because it's been built up. There's lots of little things that have come before that. Like horses don't just explode on people. They give us lots of little signs until we've gotten to that point, right?
And dogs don't just bite people. They tell you they're going to bite you.
Yeah.
And when you ignore it, then you get bit. And you're like, damn dog.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, well, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Well, no, it didn't, and neither did any polarized behavior. But there's so much truth in it's not always the expression of emotion. It's the judgment of or repression of what we're what we really authentically feel. So if you can be authentic and say, I don't like this, I'm upset about this right now, and that's okay, and just feel how you feel, then it doesn't always have to explode or get to that point where you are so angry that you feel explosive, or you are so depressed that you feel like not being alive anymore. So if people could just learn how to express how they feel from an authentic place, I mean, it would calm down a lot of things, but that's not reality. And I think the thing that I mean, again, it's two-sided, but one of the most frustrating things for me is that every time I run a retreat, every time I teach this work, it's like people will say, if I would have just had this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have, fill in the blank, destroyed my marriage, become an alcoholic, lost my job, lost my friendship. But, it's twofold, because it's like we have to go through these things to get where we're supposed to be. But if we taught children this information, we would literally change the course of humanity.
So that authenticity is difficult. I mean, I consider that as kind of being honest. It's like kind of like, Pat shows up to one of my parties in a denim Speedo. You want to go, no, Pat. No, bro. Like, no. But you go, yeah, fucking A, man, right on. Way to go. And then I'm not authentic, because I'm like, oh, Christ, no, man. Like, no. Oh, way to go, Pat. You look great, brother. Like, authenticity is hard.
It is
hard. And I
hard.
make a joke of that, but it's like, your wife, your girlfriend comes out, hey, does these jeans make my ass look fat? No, those jeans don't at all. Your ass is really fat, but the jeans don't make it look. No, hell no, you look great, baby, right? Which,
Right.
I mean, authenticity is hard.
It is hard, and society really doesn't leave room for us to be authentic. So it really, it really takes a level of tenacity to start to show up that way. And, I feel like authenticity is something that I strive for, not from a place of like telling people what I think necessarily about them, but maybe just like stating my own needs or my own level of comfortability. So it might be, hey, Pat's like, hey, you like my Speedo? And you're like,
Which you might like is Speedo, just because I didn't. It's not my
Right.
perception and your perception may be
I
different.
love my Speedo. Just to be clear, you
But
love
what that-
my Speedo.
but what that could look like is I have a need for people to be fully clothed around me. Or I have a need for men to be clothed around me. Pat, how can you help?
Pat, how can you help?
How can you
How
help?
can you help?
How can you
I like
help?
that.
But that's two of the questions that I try to ask a lot are, how can I help, or how can you help? Because then you're not telling people, but you're leaving some openness for dialogue and input. Because I don't know about you, but I really don't like to be told what to do. When people tell me what to do, I don't like it. But when people
I'm
ask,
pretty submissive.
are you? You seem like you'd be that
Pretty
type of guy.
submissive kind of guy.
I bet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, again,
So axiology,
axiology.
first of all, this is my perception. First of all, you have to understand yours.
You do. And that's the thing.
Without that, you can't be authentic.
No. And that's the first step. And you maybe you wouldn't be, but I was shocked when I started doing this work to meet so many people that didn't know their axiology. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not like great with who said what quote, but know thyself. Like, how can you know anyone else if you don't know yourself?
Yeah, but there's a lot of fear in that.
Absolutely. And, that comes within the injection of values, and, from society, from religion, from institution, from people we look up to. From the time that we're born, we're really having everybody else's axiologies and values and drivers
Pushed on you.
pushed on us.
Yeah.
And a lot of time it's out of love. It's not necessarily out of,
I don't know.
any ill intent. It's just like, I know better than you, so this is what's best for you.
I think there's a lot in love not in true love, but a lot in love that is ill intent.
Absolutely.
Like, I didn't do anything, so I want my kid to do
Absolutely.
better, or I want, you know what I mean? Like, but it has nothing to do with my kid. It has to do with the fact that I was a fucking failure at football or whatever it was.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The voids that we have sometimes cause us to place values on other people. And if that is congruent, if the axiology there is congruent, then that's going to work out real well. But if it's not, if you were born to be an artist, which clearly I wasn't because I like to paint pictures of women rollerblading. But if you're born to be an artist and your parents tell you that you need to go to law school, and if you don't, you're a loser, like that's a mind screw. Yeah. And you're going to spend your whole life trying to please other people and be inauthentic. And then at some point, and people call it the nervous breakdown, people call it the midlife crisis, but at some point your body is going to say to you, you can't live like this anymore, and I'm going to shut you down.
I'll bet there's a lot of lawyers, doctors, stockbrokers, you name it, that are just like breaking in the money that are just pathetically miserable.
Oh, yeah. I see it all the time. I've worked with lawyers. I've worked with doctors. I've worked with psychologists. Psychologists have come to me like miserable.
You hear that, Brianna? Hope we didn't waste all that money down at Texas A&M, girl.
But that's always my first question when somebody comes to me and they're in pain is, do you know who you are?
Yeah, no, I think that's I think if there was anything to take away from this retreat, I mean, if there was one thing, there's tons of things to take away, but if there was any one thing to take away from this, is to figure out your axiology.
Absolutely.
And then sort of figure out the people around you, because again, I consider this my morals and then their ethics, but if I don't fit in this peer group, there's no wonder there's all this pressure and all this strife and all this stress and all this anxiety and depression and stuff. You got to find that group that fits it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Perception versus bias, because I really enjoyed where you went with the ladies in terms of perception.
Yeah.
But I kept thinking in the back of my mind, it's bias. It's not necessarily just perception, it's bias. And whether we build it in ourselves or it was built into us, we're looking at, yes, it's our perception, but it's our biases that create the negative story. Or it's a positive story for us if we're blaming someone else, but that's what I kept going back to. Perception versus bias. Just give me because that's what I kept going back to when you were talking.
Yeah. Well, I guess for me, I don't know if it's a and or a versus. I think it's interconnected, because your biases are derived from your perception and from your experiences. So if I'm a kid and I get bit by a snake, every time I see a snake, I'm gonna be biased towards snakes because I had that bad experience.
Do you hear that, Yvonne? What? The old snake thing.
Don't make fun of my snake.
I don't know. You just scared everybody else. I don't know. I'm just saying you literally gave 3 women heart attacks.
I almost gave myself a heart attack. Leave me alone. It's a little lizard. It was.
What? See, this is what happens with production. And there's no signs, and then the hand signals suck, and there's no verbalization. What is it that Patrick needs? Oh, if they were wearing headphones?
So just to be clear, I'm doing what it was asked of me, is to wear the headphones. You wear them on the range all day long.
Your axiology is just like to be a bitch.
Well, I'm just saying you wear them for hearing protection on the range, but
not as much as you think I do, but whatever.
I was informed that you threw away my my dry erase board, so I can't give you messages anymore.
I haven't thrown away any of yours. What are you saying? Let's go to what you were trying to tell me.
What I was saying is I have the testimonials ready, and we're just going to do audio on them.
Okay.
Whether we want to do it now or later.
No, we'll get there.
Okay.
I'm in charge.
Oh, all right.
Shut his microphone. Shut the producer's microphone off, please. Thank you. All right. Perception and bias, drives, and symptoms. I mean, I talk about drives. You did kind of, I don't know that that's the word you used. I talk about drives because dogs have drives, horses have drives. I think all humans have drives. Like we all have basic drives or needs, and we're not all the same, but we all have basic drives and needs. But versus symptoms, like when we're accepting, I have whatever somebody's diagnosed me with, drives and symptoms.
Okay.
And all this is kind of more or less connected: perception, bias, drives, because my drives create some of my perceptions. My perceptions create some of my drives. Where do I accept symptoms versus it's not like, when does a symptom become a drive? You know what I mean? In other words, I like being sick. I get lots of attention when I'm sick.
Yeah, so that's a very real thing, and in the coaching work that I've done and in the people that I've worked with, it all boils down to this. It all boils down to risk versus reward and benefits versus drawbacks. So
And that varies by people, right?
it does.
Yeah. Because
It
some
does.
people like a lot of risk for the opportunity for a big reward.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some
absolutely.
people don't like quite as much.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's all a part of the axiology. But, when we're talking about the biological basis of behavior, I will always do what, in my perception, is going to bring me more reward in that moment and less risk in that moment. Now, that could change from moment to moment, but, if, let's say I'm trying to lose 10 pounds, but like I'm like fiending for some of Christine's chocolate mousse pie. In that moment, I want to meet my need of eating, this chocolate mousse pie. Then in that moment, I perceive more reward in eating the pie. So I'm going to eat the pie.
Yeah, roger that.
But let's say I'm sitting there and my pants don't fit and I've got I'm being suffocated and I see Christine's chocolate mousse pie.
I feel violated right now. I feel like you're attacking me a little bit, but go ahead. I'm listening.
Oh.
Yeah, I feel attacked here, but that's okay.
If I'm in pain because my pants don't fit and the pie is in front of me, then I'm going to perceive more reward in that moment by passing. And so we can always identify by the reward risk component or the benefit drawback component. And, again, that can be different from moment to moment, but at the end of the day, and I don't like to share my personal opinions on things unless I know I'm talking to people
either.
that are,
You notice that. I don't
are
like
like-minded, because my opinions don't really matter. But for the context of the conversation, I have seen people who really have a heavy martyr traits and characteristics that develop illnesses. And then they look at, they used to have to be the one to take care of everybody else. And now they have this illness and now everybody's taking care of them. Or sometimes there's people that just, they would never kill themselves, but they've really gotten to the point where they're hopeless. And, and then all of a sudden they get cancer. So they get to leave the world, but they get to leave with the love and support of the people around them. And, obviously I have not personally experienced this, and I also don't like to talk about things I haven't personally experienced, but there was a lady at a seminar that I attended that had MS. And, she was introduced to all this work, and a lot of the work we do, again, is radical responsibility. And she realized that she had developed this MS, and, she was given a path of likelihood of being able to heal that through doing this emotional work. And she said, you know what, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not ready to let go of my disease because it's serving me. There are so many more benefits to me right now having MS.
Yeah, like you said, you have
than if I
to
got
weigh,
healthy.
like for everything, there's a balance.
Yep.
There's some even bad things. There's something good that comes out of it. And even really good things, there's bad things that come out of it.
Yeah, and I think especially now because we are so polarized as a society, or even as a world, we're so into this good, bad, right, wrong. If I'm right, which I have to be right, then that means that you have to be wrong. And I just see this buildup of polarization instead of saying like, I'm right according to me, but I'm right, but you're also not wrong because according to you, you're right. And so we're just going to agree that we can have different opinions, but we can still be friends and life can still move forward.
I think that's where take the high road. I'm a very extremely mature person where I go, well, now wait, according to me, and the things that I know I'm right, but I'm perfectly willing to say that according to you, you see things a different way. Now, in the end, you're all fucked up and I'm right, but it is what it is.
But if you keep that to yourself, then
yeah. Oh no, I can't keep that to myself.
You
You always have to add the last part.
Okay. Well,
So I have a really weird question now that I love rabbit holes. Are caretakers people who care for other people, say children that are forced into caring for their parents, or people that are forced into caring for their brothers or their sisters or whatever? Are caretakers more easily flipped to accepting so I'm a caretaker, thank God I finally got sick, so now I get a chance to be. I mean, would you have any input on that?
Yeah, I do, because I have seen that, not personally, but I have worked with people. Absolutely. And I have a story. This isn't my story, but it was a story I was told by Dr. DeMartini, but I think it's really relevant, but he talks about there was a guy that had the Parkinson's, right? And he had gotten to the point where he was losing movement in like the whole right side of his body. And what we learned over the weekend was mental, vocational, and financial. And when he went to the breakthrough method to do the work on this, he was in a wheelchair. They had to like wheel him up the steps, and he was losing vision in his right eye. So the whole right side of his body was really symptomatic. And when he peeled away the layers and got in and did the work, he found the memory where he feels started it all. And it was, he decided he wanted to quit his job and start a business. And he had a business plan. He did all this work. He laid everything out. And he sat his wife down at the table to tell her about he wanted to quit his job, do this business. And before he could speak, she said, "I'm pregnant." And he said, "Okay." And he never told her.
Never knew, huh?
And he just sucked it up.
Yep.
And he stayed at his job, and he stayed living out of his axiology to get, because he had to be responsible because now he had a baby on the way. So he never did his dream. And he felt like he had to take care of everyone else. And then he developed MS. And then she had to take care of him. Her mother was taking care of him. And so he was actually able to go in and do the work on this. And he went back to the hotel that night. And when he woke up in the morning, he regained his motor skills. He regained sight in his eye. He regained mobility in his arm. I mean, he actually walked up the steps that next day into the seminar, And again, like none of us, and my concern is always that this gets taken out of context. Dr. DeMartini will tell you, like, I'm not telling you I can heal you. Like, that's not my gig. I'm not telling you that doing this work will heal you, and I'm not saying that either. But these are some things that have happened as a result of coming to these awarenesses and making these decisions. And so he actually went home to his doctor, and he was like, look, I can see and I can move my hand now, and his doctor's like, well, sometimes your symptoms spike and then they get and then they get bad again. So don't think too much of it. But then, after 6 months of stability, his doctor then became open-minded, and now he teaches this to other people who have MS. So I hope that answered your question.
No, it's just, it was a little rabbit hole that, you said something that triggered a question in me that, I mean, I know my opinion, but my experience is so narrow, my opinion doesn't mean anything in terms, be careful in life. Hey, I've seen something 3 times. It must be true.
Yeah.
Except there's almost 9 billion people on Earth. So, 3 experiences really doesn't make anything,
Yeah.
So the next thing that I resonated with, I took something from as I was listening. There's a lot of people out there. Is delegation a cop-out? Or can delegation be mutually fulfilling?
Delegation is necessary. If you have a high-level goal, you will never get there on your own. Delegation is critical to success. It's absolutely critical because again, we all have different axiology, and and I think
But think in terms of micromanagers and like how free of delegation does it have to be? Is it just the end product, or is it the way they do the process, or what?
Well, again, like, so when we generalize, we polarize. So that's not a blanket.
Can you
all
say that
question.
with Can you say that with an accent? When we generalize, we polarize.
I don't think I can, but you did it really well.
All right, thank you. Go
I
ahead.
actually said that we had to do extremism training, because of all the stuff that happened on January 6th. And so we were at drill, and the general came to teach us extremism training. So you know that shit is important if your general has come to teach you. So anyway, he was talking about polarization, and I'm like, just shut up and sit down. Don't say anything. Don't say anything, And then my hand went up, and I was like, when we generalize, we polarize, sir. And he was like, I'm stealing that. I'm going to use that in all my talks from now on. So I was like, yeah, cool. But anyway, back to generalization. And, I don't think this is my opinion as much as it's used in corporate America all the time, strength finders and all the personality tests. And, if you try to operate outside of your strengths, axiology, and you try to do things that you're not good at, like you're going to fail. But you can find somebody else with a different axiology than you that enjoys doing those things. And, they'll gladly do it. And you met Jacqueline, my intern. She was with me for about 8 months, and she was just a taskmaster. She was very detail oriented. She liked to make lists and check things off. Like,
Boy, I wish I could find somebody that liked making lists.
Yeah. So
Gosh.
I make lists, and then I find them 3 months later, like, in a notebook that I've never looked at again. But there are things that I am just inherently terrible at, like being organized. I used to try to make myself be organized. It's not going to happen. Now, I am organized in the things that are in my highest values. So I'm organized in my facilitation. I'm organized with my horses, things that I have a very high value on. But administratively, I'm not. And we're all like that. So
do we have to think about it? Can we just be drawn and just recognize these types of symbiotic relationships and just like out of nowhere just be drawn and bump into somebody and it just works? Or do we have to plan this? Do we have to think? Do we have to know, hey, I need somebody that can make lists? Or do you just bump into somebody that can make lists?
Well, I think you can bump into, random people but the one of the recent, I guess, level ups that I've had is like when you know and you can be more specific and you can write that down and have it on paper in a plan, it tends to happen a lot more quickly. So clarity for me, and this is just my personal opinion, but clarity for me is key. And I used to never write anything down, and I just would like kind of flow through life. I was just this big free spirit, and then I would get a lot of chaos in my life.
Those people are hard for me to understand.
It's not an easy way to live. And then I couldn't understand why my business wasn't successful. So I decided to write a strategic plan. And I had never really had any big donors. I had never really had any serious success. And then I wrote my first strategic plan. And then within a couple of days of writing that, I met my first major donor. And I feel like then I got a little ways with that plan, and then I needed staff. So then I wrote down the types of people I needed, what I was looking for in those people, and they just started showing up. So I feel personally what works for me is I try to write everything down in a clear plan, knowing it's not always going to go that way, but there's something about putting pen to paper in what you want in life, and I feel that it produces. So I don't like to be specific in how anything happens around me, but I like to be specific in what I want to happen.
The outcome.
The outcome, right?
Yeah.
But that's not always like, with Kelly, I'm just like, hey, Kelly, this is what I need done. I don't care how you do it. But I've tried to do that with Tristan, and he hates it because he wants me to tell him every little thing to do. So yeah, it's really individual. So if I told Kelly every little thing to do, she probably wouldn't be here with me. She'd probably probably wouldn't have taken this job, right? But she knows, like, she has I don't care. Just get it done. But when I did that for Tristan, like, he was having a system meltdown, and he came to me and he's like, I just need you to tell me what to do. And cool. Like, so before I wasn't telling him what to do because I don't like to be told what to do. So
Right.
I was treating him the way I wanted to be treated, but it wasn't what he wanted. So I like to just ask, do you like to be told what to do, or do you like to be given free reign?
Right.
And then if I
Again,
just,
I'm subordinate, so I don't know,
yeah, right.
So one of the things that, and I don't think we disagree on that. Well, I don't know whether we do or not. I don't have any idea. But you talked some about victim of self. I want to know because I don't necessarily believe in that. I'm not saying that we don't create our own problems. That's not what I'm saying. When I think of a victim, I'm thinking I know a lot of people that are victims of extreme evil, horrible people that need violence done upon them. And I have a hard time measuring those evil acts against innocent people. How do we and again, and I guess, okay, here's the thing that triggered me on that is that in law enforcement, I've seen a lot of sexual battery cases and a lot of rape cases. Who do you think is on those juries in Potawatomi County? They're not men. There's no men on those juries. They're middle-aged to older farm housewives. And then what do? They pick apart the fucking victim. What was she wearing? What does she do? What kind of music does she like to listen to? Has she had multiple boyfriends in the past? And who is the harshest judger of anybody? It's freaking conservative, middle-aged women, and the dude gets off. And I've seen it over and over and over again. And I know, I'm not saying that there's not false accusations. I don't freaking, you know what I mean? This ain't my job to decide. I'm not judge, I'm not jury. But I'm telling you, I know who they pick for juries in this because there's science behind it. And it really bothers me when evil people get off or when evil people do something to a fairly innocent person, and then they have to go through your process 10 years after their life has melted down. And the evil person should have been shot in the fucking head before it ever happened. So I struggled with that part a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that what I was saying was taken out of context. So I'm not saying that people aren't victims. People are absolutely victims. There's victims of crime every day. And, is it fair what happens to them?
That was terrible.
No, I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that people aren't victims.
No, I know. But I did,
But what, my opinion is that if we continue in our story of victimhood, it's the story.
Yeah, I understood that.
That brings harm.
I did understand that.
But,
I did understand that. I just have a hard time. I have a hard time not placing blame where blame should be placed. But I am not trying to fix people. So, all I'm trying to do is wreak frickin' vengeance.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm not saying you shouldn't place blame. It serves. Placing blame serves, because if we didn't blame the villains, then they would just keep doing it. Nobody would be in jail. Nobody, so I'm not, cause and effect.
Yeah, it's weird you say that. It's kind of like the horse. He stomped his back foot or whatever. Defense Midwest's motto is the relentless pursuit of villains.
Yeah. And that's critical. That's cause and effect. So please keep doing that. That needs to happen. That's important. But what I deal with, the things that I deal with are the things in people that, things that have happened to them out of their control. We definitely need people like you. You guys are critical. Please keep getting the bad guys, because we don't want them to be free. And it is absolutely tragic when someone gets away with a heinous crime that has destroyed someone's life. So I'm on board. But I'm also dealing with what goes on inside of that person's head.
Yeah.
And, we can take the power back that way. But by no means am I saying that that people aren't villains and that people aren't evil. There absolutely are. And we need to
And I do think that the one thing that because I don't know anything about this stuff, and I'm all new to what I was listening, and my perspective is a little warped, but the thing that I got out of it is reality. What happened, and I get that the victim has to deal with the reality, and really punishment at that point isn't going to make that victim feel any better. Probably. And I've heard that over. I've heard that from people who have actually extracted the other. But so I don't know. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying I had a hard time. I did struggle with that little piece of it. In that I want to blame somebody.
Well, and
I mean, and it's not a story in that perspective.
No.
And I totally got your story. Hey, I'm blaming this person, except I really didn't know their perspective and I didn't know their boundary. You know what I mean? That's different. I really want to blame a criminal, a felon, a sexual abuser, a batterer, domestic abuser. You know what I mean? I want to blame them. I want to, and I want to hold them accountable.
Yeah, and you should, and they should be held accountable. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, and then this is my next point of this. I heard a couple of times, hey, we're not superior to anybody. We're totally superior to that asshole. We're totally better than evil people. We are, no, maybe not me, but all you people are better than those evil. Like there are, as babies, I kind of think we're all equal. Uh-huh. And then we get inputs and society or psychology or, medical issues or whatever. No, we separate somewhere. And there are people that are better than others because these choose to prey on innocent victims.
So I understand that. And I'm not saying I'm right and you're wrong. I'm saying that
it'd be nice if you said I was right.
I know. I'm not going to say that.
Okay.
But I'm also not going to say that you're wrong. I just choose to see life from cause and effect versus good and evil.
And I think for fixing things, I think that fixing things long term, that's a better answer. Fixing things short term, mine's a better answer. How about we agree on that?
Can I tell you a story?
Yes, I would love to hear a story.
Okay. So again, this goes back to perspective and axiology. So there's a book, it's called 3 Magic Words. It's written by a guy named U.S. Anderson. And he was in the Navy, he was on a ship. Okay, and he's sailing on this ship, and all of a sudden this suicide bomber is in this little boat coming towards their ship to blow up their ship. And he shoots the guy, and he kills him, and then the ship is celebrating because he saved everybody's life. So obviously the guy trying to kill them was evil. Yeah. And all the heroes on the ship were good, right? Mm-hmm. And so he talks about how he goes, below deck and he's sitting in his bunk and he's reflecting. And he's like, yeah, I saved all these people and that guy's evil and I'm good. But somewhere his family thinks he's good and his unit members are grieving his death. And so who's right and who's wrong?
You know how you solve that? You say, fuck those guys.
Right.
Fuck those guys. Right. Our guys are all good. That's
right.
How you solve that.
That's how you solve that. But the real answer is it depends on who you ask.
Oh, you're sure.
Right?
I don't disagree.
So we need to, and again, like I still believe every trait serves. So, self-righteousness in a sense, is a good thing, because if we didn't have self-righteousness, then we could be taken over by other countries. So we need people out there to have those beliefs. And again, you have to look from the context of what you're dealing with. And that's why I always ask people, like, and the first thing I say in these retreats is, I'm not here to get you to believe like I believe. I'm just teaching you how to believe for yourself or come to your own answers.
Because it's not therapy.
No, it's not therapy.
Right, it's not.
It's not therapy at all. It's just trying to show people it's a system and a process to find your own truth.
My opinion of this, and I'm very process oriented, is this is a process.
It is. It's absolutely a process.
And it's a short process. It's not like a 20-step process. It's all my processes are 4 to 5 steps.
Yep.
In everything that I teach. You know, they're short. You can make these decisions under high stress. You know what I mean? And you have a very legitimate process.
It's effective, and I think, you know, again,
That if a person can establish their axiology,
totally,
then they can move forward.
yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, it's really, and like going back and sorting out the past, you know, there's different opinions on it, and you know, there are people out there that say like you don't have to go back and hash everything out. My opinion is it depends on who you are and what you want.
Yeah, I think I don't have to hash anything out in the past. I'm one of those people that, okay, I fucked that all up.
And not
all I got to do is
does.
go home and sleep on it. I mean, if I go home and sleep, then it's behind me.
And that's great. And there are plenty of people out there that don't. Then there are other people, like I feel like I had to go through and do everything I did to get where I'm at. But yeah, not everybody needs to do that. And that's why I love giving people a lot of little pieces of information that they can draw from and come up with a system of their own. So I don't want you to use my system. I just want I want to expose you to these options, and then I want you to make your own system.
Yeah, you have to adhere to the principles, but you don't have to do the every specific thing that you brought up over 3 days.
Nope.
But you have to adhere to the principles. Like if you're not honest with yourself about who you are, and if you can't be honest to the people around you about who you are, then it's going to be hard to move forward. Absolutely.
And you know, the universal laws are the laws. Like you can read about them. There are thousands of books and podcasts and YouTube videos. Like if you just
there's
look
4
up,
universal rules of gun safety. Yeah, roger that.
Yeah. So you know, those
are you talking about something else?
No, I'm talking about the 7 principles of the universe. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. But you can Google it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And yeah, I'm sure we can both Google it. But yeah, so I tell people, like, whether you believe in these laws of nature or not, they exist and they govern you. And it's much easier. Life gets easier when you know and understand them and play by them in a way that fits with you.
So those are principles.
They are.
Yeah, they're undeniable principles.
They're undeniable principles.
Right on. Yeah. And we touched on this, but I want to touch on it again because I find it extremely important in the encounters that I have, especially amongst damaged veterans and damaged law enforcement officers and damaged emergency service personnel, is the diagnosis attachment versus the diagnosis attachment in correlation with the fear of healing.
Absolutely.
And I find that
huge,
wildly pervasive.
It is. Like, it absolutely
and you
is.
can't get through.
Yeah.
Like if you challenge the diagnosis, it's like you drew a knife and you want a knife item or something.
Absolutely. And I can speak to that. And those are really 2 different things that you brought up, like the cost benefits and the diagnosis. And I can tell you from my personal experience, because I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, it's like you're going through life and you have all these emotions you don't understand. You have all these thoughts in your head you don't understand. You're losing control over your nervous system and you're reacting in ways that you don't understand. And you're like, what is wrong with me? Like, there's something wrong with me. You know there's something wrong with you. And you do things and you say things that don't feel good. And then you have guilt and shame. And then all of a sudden the doctor comes along and says, you have PTSD. And you're like, oh, there's a reason why I act this way. There's a reason for everything that I've done. And I don't have to take responsibility. And I know, because that's exactly what I did. You know, I was doing these things that I wasn't proud of, and I was reacting in ways that were damaging my relationships. And then they diagnosed me, and I was like, oh, thank God. Like, I have an explanation for why I'm so fucked up. And it felt good. And then I wanted to cling to that, right? But on top of that, I was medicated. I was put in therapies that didn't work. I was told I would never have a quality of life, that I just had to take these pills for the rest of my life and be happy with the small amount of quality of life.
It knocked the tops and the bottoms off, but it was just dull.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you don't feel bad anymore because you don't feel.
Right.
But when you give up the ability to feel bad, then you also give up access to good feelings.
Roger.
And then you're like, why do I exist? Like, I'm nothing. And, and I will say, like, the first time I learned that, first of all, full healing was available to me, and that nobody could put parameters on my level of healing. And second of all, that I had to take full responsibility. Because you want to talk about a victim story, like, I had the best. Like, I was an abused child, and I had all these things taken from me and all these opportunities. Like, oh my God, it was strong, right? And I felt that. I felt so victimized, and I felt to my core like, I'm such a good person. Why do all these bad things happen to me? And then I was like, oh, it's because I have PTSD. It's my mom's fault I'm so fucked up. And then when I felt like it was my mom's fault that I was so fucked up, then she held the keys to my mental and emotional liberation. And the first time I heard that I had to be responsible for my mom abusing me, I was like, what? That's crazy, And it wasn't that I had to be responsible for what she did to me. And it wasn't that what she did to me was good or right or okay, but I had to be responsible for what I was going to do about it, how I was going to move forward from it. And I did. I went back and I looked at, there's this very specific scene where, she was going to smash this bowl over my head. I was like on the floor, and she's going to smash this bowl on my head. And I had to go back to that scene and like do some work on it. And I realized in that moment, because she didn't do it, like, I stopped her from doing it. And when I went back to that scene, I realized that I was actually really in control over my mom's emotions. And I would push her, and then I would scale back. And then I would push her, and I would scale back. And I knew on any particular day that if I really wanted to get into an altercation, I knew exactly what buttons to push and when not to back down. Or if I didn't want it to happen, I would back down. Now I look at what I do today, my highest contribution to humanity is a facilitator. And a good facilitator has to take people to a level of discomfort, but they have to know when to back off. So I realized that my greatest gift that I have today that contributes to humanity of facilitation, I was doing to my mom at a very young age. Yeah. And that gift was honed in there. So I totally went on a tangent there. But I just felt like that was an important point.
No, I would tell you, and I would never excuse domestic violence. And I'm not saying this is every case, but I definitely have witnessed domestic violence in which the victim controlled the entire situation. Sure. Because had total control over it for whatever reason. But and it is what it is. But I'm just saying, I've literally seen people marionettes on a freaking puppet string and get the response they want,
Yeah. So, there's a lot to go into that, and that's, why it's so important not to generalize.
Well, we're not. The good thing about the podcast is we're just trying to draw interest into the HOOVES program, or, like, we're not, like, this isn't going to solve anybody out there or anything,
not.
but maybe people go, wait a minute, that fucking looks a little bit like me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, like, with the diagnosis, so I was told PTSD is not curable. You just have to find your new normal, and you have to find out how to function for the rest of your life with it. But I didn't like that answer, and I didn't want to continue. I remember sitting in a chair, and I was like literally drooling on myself, and I was just like non-functioning, and I was like, I don't want to be like this anymore. And I actually prayed, and at one point I was an atheist. I thought there's no way God could exist if all these horrible things happen to people, and if all these things happen to me, there can't be a God, So I had this like moment of challenge where I'm like, okay, God, if you're real, then heal me, He
didn't though, did he?
No, he didn't heal me, but he gave me.
Because he didn't give a rat's ass about our daily activities. Well, he's too busy with the world, man.
God doesn't like ultimatums.
No, he doesn't like that kind of crap.
But he did tell me, I said, I'm like, then help me find the way. Because obviously I can't see it. So if you're real, help me heal. And 3 days later, I swear there's something about 3 days, but 3 days later, this girl called me out of nowhere, and she said, "Hey, you popped into my head. I'm going to this 3-day retreat, and I want to invite you."
And we just had a 3-day retreat here too,
I know.
didn't we? Yeah.
And this was what 12 years ago. And I'm like, okay, well maybe this is my sign, And I was so angry and I was so shut down and I was so dug into my diagnosis. And I went to this retreat and I just had this, I had this amazing healing experience. And it
3:00 in the afternoon.
saved my life. Yeah. And by the end of I went in there scary. Like I wouldn't talk to anyone. I was in the corner. Like all the girls joke now that nobody wanted to even be around me or look at me because I was so scary. And by like the last day, I'm like in the front. They wanted us. It was a church retreat, so you had to like sing songs and like do things. And I was like, these people, like this is a cult. Get me out of here. Like these people are nuts. And then by the last day, because I had been restored, I'm like in the front, like singing their songs, doing all that. But I was bought in. So everybody's healing journey is different. But it doesn't mean there wasn't a lot of work that came after that. Sure. But that was like the first moment that my eyes were opened to that healing was possible. And so, I haven't had a PTSD or depression symptom in 10 years. So I would say that I'm, it's not like I haven't in 6 months. It's been 10 years. Yeah. I've been off medication. I've been reevaluated psychologically because I had to for my military career, but I just don't. Like it's all gone. And that is available. But the challenge when we talk about people who are on benefits, especially veterans who are getting disability.
100%, 90%, yeah, whatever.
There is a risk if you're on disability and you heal, that means your financial stability goes away. And to some people, it's too big of a risk. It's too big of a risk. And that's okay. That's their business. But then to other people, it's not.
My big, and I guess this is a judgment in some way, shape, or form, but I do believe that the country is in a turning point on mental health, and for the good. Mm-hmm. Except that I don't think for the good for veterans because hey, I got 100% disability. Yeah, ATF's gonna go. Roger that, bro. Turn all your guns in, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's coming.
Yeah. Yes,
and all they got to do is go see who are we paying checks to. Like this isn't a HIPAA violation. This is who are we paying checks to. Turn your guns in, man. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm a big constitutional guy. I've screwed that. That's getting way out there. Hey, two things that are really that no way are we skipping in this conversation, and we ain't making this in 2 hours, guys. So quit giving me the fucking time, okay? Universal bitch slap.
Oh, you're gonna make me talk about the universal bitch slap.
Just because I like saying bitch slap.
Should I talk about the universal bitch slap, or should one of the people from?
No, you talk about first. They're gonna get a talk too. They're all gonna get a talk too.
Okay.
Yeah. I want you to describe the universal bitch slap.
I keep trying to find like a more delicate or appropriate word, but I just can't. So we just keep calling it the bitch slap, but. It is real. Yeah. It's real. Yes. So, we could maybe call it a pattern disrupt, but yeah. So
no, it's a universal bitch slap.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Thank you. Thank you for validating the bitch slap. Like Kelly and I were talking on the way here because we didn't know what we were going to. We primarily work with veterans, and veterans are crude and foul, and we use language that's not appropriate, and that's just our culture. And we're like, we're going to this ladies' retreat. We don't know these ladies. I wonder if they're going to use profanity. I wonder if we should use profanity. And Kelly's like, I'm not going to use profanity. I'm like, I'm definitely going to use profanity, but it won't be intentional. So we didn't know how y'all take the bitch slap, but the bitch slap is real. And one of the things that we talk about is, our axiology, first of all, and then selling ourselves out or being inauthentic or creating a life that's incongruent with our axiology. So when we do that, we get different levels of feedback. So just like a horse going gangbusters on someone, it doesn't get to that level before there's little signs along the way. So we have first social feedback, which is discomfort or chaos in a relationship. Then we have physical feedback, which is our bodies letting us know that we're living incongruent with their axiology. But those two things are really easy to just ignore. You know, if we have social feedback that's uncomfortable, we just don't talk to that person anymore. If we get physical feedback, we can take a pill or do a therapy and, you know, repress that or ignore that. But when it gets to a point where we have become so far outside of who we are in accordance with our axiology, then we get the universal bitch slap.
And just as a side for that, anybody that's in the audience here or anybody out there listening, like if you have any extra hydrocortisone or hydrocodone, you know, Oxycontin, Dilaudids, anything along those lines. I run a little 501c program that's, you know, I'll dispose of your medications for you. So just give me a call. I'll be happy to come by, pick them up for free. Don't charge anything for that. But go ahead.
That's a really nice PSA bug.
Yeah.
So the bitch slap is the catastrophic event in your life that no longer will allow you to live on the path that you've been living. And so that could be an accident. That could be a terminal illness. That could be, you know, in a major relationship.
And does it have
event.
to be yours? Can the universal bitch slap be an accident involving your friend? Can it be a terminal illness with your mom or your dad? Or like, does the bitch slap always you?
No.
Okay. All right.
No, it doesn't have to be. It could be somebody else that has something that has happened. You know, like I'll just use my situation for example. My dad died of stress. He dropped dead of a heart attack because he worked himself to death. And, you know, because he died, I lost my farm and my first farm. I lost a lot of things in that process. But the one thing that stuck with me and the thing that continues to stick with me is because that I have a tendency to go down that same path. And so overwork.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I was definitely doing it then. I mean, I was slowly killing myself through overwork as well. And, you know, it took his death to disrupt that pattern for me and force me to change and think more about what I want in my life. Now, I've had my own personal bitch slaps as well, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Oh, the camera's stuck. Oh, the universal bitch slap on the camera that goes back and forth and back and forth.
That's
was on
freaky.
you. That was on
That's
you.
freaky.
That was on you, by the way. I don't know what you did the last 3 days that caused that, but I guarantee
I'm
it was
sure it
not
wasn't
me.
you.
It was
I'll
not
take the
me.
blame. Just like I took the blame for the halter earlier.
So, when you get universal bitch slapped, whack, and you blame everything but the universe or yourself,
Yeah.
how do you recognize the universal bitch slap? I mean, that it's you. You know, how do you recognize it? You know, it's your axiology or whatever. You know what I mean? How do you recognize it?
Well, if you're experiencing a catastrophic amount of pain from a situation, then that's the bitch slap. And then you can ask yourself, where am I living incongruent with or outside of my axiology? But if you don't know what your axiology is, you really can't
Again,
ask that
you gotta
question.
start there,
So,
don't
you know,
you?
that's just
The
we have to-
process is always start there.
Yeah, the processes always start there.
How often does that change? Quite often?
Your axiology.
Yeah.
So
Mine's changed
yeah,
a lot over life.
So there are things within our axiology that are intrinsic that don't change, and then there are things that do change.
Like what would be intrinsic? One example. What's an intrinsic?
Okay, so like for me, like horses are definitely an intrinsic thing that I don't think would ever change.
Okay.
Like horses are in my top 3 values.
And you're talking about your highest values.
Your highest values.
Yeah, what do you
right?
hold as your highest values? Those are
Yeah.
intrinsic.
Yes, those
So
are intrinsic.
Where
but-
are the ones that can change? Where would you
so-
measure those
Yeah,
at?
so that's actually a really great question.
Oh,
so
hey, looky there. At 15 episodes, and I asked a good question. There we go.
So when our axiology changes, that is reflective of voids and values, right? So maybe something's high on our axiology because we perceive that it's a void. But then when we fill that void, it's like less important to us
Because it's fulfilled.
because it's fulfilled.
So let's just say for some of the people that participated, they're in school or they have school in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's high value for them just to complete school. But once they complete school, then something else moves on.
Yeah. Or it could even be a change in perception could also shift your axiology. Like Christine and I were actually talking before we started. I had a high value on getting my PhD, and I was absolutely doing this. And so I went back to school, and I'm in the master's program, and like halfway through it, I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, I don't care about this. I'm already doing everything I want to do.
Although you could prescribe me some Oxy if
I
you had
definitely could not
If you were a
do that.
psychiatrist, you could. Like,
Okay, I could, but would I? Definitely not.
That's a narcotic. I don't think you can. It's like
a psychiatrist
Yeah.
can. A psychologist cannot.
Right. Well, I was definitely never going to be a psychiatrist, but I wanted to get my PhD in actually
Well, isn't
neuropsychology.
that a doctor?
Well, there's an MD and then there's a P. Dude, you know this. You're just being facetious. Okay, moving
I'm
on.
being what?
Never mind.
Yeah, another big word.
I know.
Go
I'm
ahead.
full of those. But yeah, so then I looked at, education was really a really high value of
Yeah.
mine. Institutionalized education. But then now that I'm in it and, yes, I'm going to finish my master's because I only have 4 classes left, but I'm not going to go get my PhD. It is no longer, that's no longer part of my axiology or part of my values.
So at one point, getting a PhD was a high value. And then
High.
as you went through the process, you realized, hey, I can do everything I want to do
Yeah.
without the added stress. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And why do I need to be a doctor? There's only one reason that I would need to be a doctor, and that would be for my own ego or my own insecurity
prescribe
about
me
what
medicine.
I do. And not
Other than
I
that-
know.
other
I
than
don't
that-
ever want to be that kind of doctor.
And you're going to be my.
I'm not going to be your,
Other than that, you're
your
going to be.
prescriber.
Jeez.
Sorry.
I thought we were
Sorry
going to get somewhere here
disappoint.
today.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I get it. I think it's. I mean, when you first introduced the concept, it was a difficult concept for me to grasp. The universe is bitch slapping me. Well, in a way, the universe isn't. My decisions are bitch slapping me, but it comes from somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Well, and
you
it's,
know?
and when we look at this, and I didn't talk a lot about this because, there's a whole nother day of content that we didn't get into. But we also have to look at the reflection. There's a reflection of the micro level to the macro level. So the micro level is like a cellular level. And, science has come out that have been so beneficial to a lot of these philosophies and teachings because, 5 years ago, there was really not a lot of evidence. But they've even identified, writing good positive words on, like, plants and glasses of water. Like, you can influence...
The plant grows better?
The plant grows better, or, they froze water with good words and froze water with bad words.
See, Mike, if you would go write good words in your cornfields, you could probably get better yields.
That would be a cool experience.
That would be a cool experiment.
But, so science has proven that you can influence and change things on a molecular level, and then the reflection of that would be the macro level, which would be the universal level. And again, according to the principle, the natural law of correspondence, as above, so below. So there's always a reflective component. And you can Google the universal principles because we don't have time for that.
Yes. Well, we have lots of time, but we have all the time we want.
Has it been an hour?
It is hour. No, we're about 30 minutes in. Hey, I've got the big question, and I don't know. I mean, literally, if I taught your program, and I would spend 90% of the time on axiology because most people won't admit theirs. But, and I think this has to do with that, I want you to talk about the fantasy of life.
I love talking about the fantasy of life. So, according to the natural law of balance, you will attract the nightmare to the degree that you create the fantasy, because life is not one-sided.
Say that again, because I think some people may have missed that. or
Louder for the people in the
like
back?
that's
Yeah.
a deep concept. Like
Well,
say that one more time.
Yeah, it is. So we attract the nightmare to the degree that we create the fantasy, because we think that we can live a one-sided life. We're hedonistic by nature, which means that we're constantly seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. That's just
Some of us,
Well,
some of us, the pain
yeah.
is sort of the pleasure, but that's okay. Go on, go on with your story. We
Okay.
won't tell mine right
All
now.
right, that's good. So what we have a tendency to do, because we don't know any better, is we create a fantasy about things that we encounter in life. So I'm going to get this job, and this job's going to be so great. Or
Yeah.
I just met this person, and they're like the greatest person in the
My
world.
life's
and,
gonna be great.
Yeah, my life's going to be great. But everything is two-sided, and that's not my opinion. That's the natural law of
No.
balance. That's a governing principle.
Yeah, this is a principle.
It's a principle.
I've lived this. Yes, this is a
And
principle.
but when you don't know any better, you create fantasies. And
Yes.
so I would say I agree with you. Axiology is the most important principle that we teach, but I think balance is the second most important principle, because if you're not governing your life in balance, that's when you get the bitch slap. And nobody never mind. I'm not going to say nobody likes the bitch slap, because some people might like it. But
No, drama's drama
know.
for some. But in terms of the fantasy of life, and this isn't an exact correlation, but in terms of the fantasy of life, I want you to talk about relationships. I saw so many fucking retreats we could teach. We could teach parenting retreats. We could teach relationship retreats, which I don't
Yeah.
want to teach any of these things. But I'm literally listening to you going, holy crap. We could do 3 days on relationships
Totally.
because this is the exact same thing. But I want you to talk about relationships in terms of needing somebody, wanting somebody, or just being with somebody that you get, mutual benefit. What was it? You said something one time. Oh, we're all narcissists. We only do things because we get something out of it.
yeah.
But take that to the fantasy of life and a relationship.
Yeah, well, we get these ideas, and mainly from society, and Disney movies are the worst. Like, Disney movies really cultivate this toxic relationship fantasy that there's somebody out there that's supposed to love you unconditionally.
Disney movies. What was the best shot in any movie you've ever seen? It wasn't Shooter. It wasn't Sniper. It was when Bambi's mom got drilled. Okay.
God, stop
best
it.
shot. Best shot ever.
Why would you-
Bambi's mom. Whack. She's gone, and everybody cried.
Yes, I'm about to cry right now.
See what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, it was hard. I mean, it was legitimate. Like, that was okay. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, that was a pattern disrupt. I'm going back to the traumatic memory of the first time I watched Bambi, and I cried for like 3 days. But yeah, I mean, with
Fantasy of life, relationships.
fantasy of
Sorry.
life that
relationships.
dear mom shouldn't die. Is it true? Obviously, it's not. But yeah, I mean, I think the only way that you can have a healthy relationship is to be with that person because you want to be with that person, not because you need that person. Because the moment we create this fantasy about who this person is, and then we start placing expectations on this person. And then inevitably the person stops living up to the expectations
Yes.
that we've placed, and then we resent them, and then we punish them, and then they resent us, and then it just totally breaks down.
And
from
that's
there.
a podcast all in
That
of
is
itself.
a podcast all in itself.
Except that, yes, it's a podcast all in of itself. Except when you like, if you're placing somebody on a pedestal.
Oh yeah, the
But-
pedestal pit.
Well, yeah, and I don't really. That's not where I meant to go.
Okay.
But it's a product of needing something from somebody or whatever. But is there? Remember those 7 frickin' little circle things, and there was one at the top,
The
and 3
7
on the
areas
right.
of life.
Whatever the
Yeah,
hell.
yeah, yeah.
Those seven things that were really important to what you taught that I don't remember.
Yes.
You remember how you assign percentages to them?
Yes.
What if legitimately you have a 0% on one, and you have a 3% on one, and you have is it needing somebody because they have a high percent in those areas, or is that just fulfilling a symbiotic relationship, or is it needing something from them that at some point you're going to let each other down?
Well, again, anytime you need anyone or anything outside of yourself, you're going to be let down. That's inevitable, which is okay. Like, it happens. And we attend to attract people that are higher in the areas that we're lower in. It's, again, there's no absolutes, there's no haves tos, but if you have a really high value on, let's say, fitness, and opposite on my little circle chart is like vocation, maybe the person that you're with like works all the time and vocation is their highest value, and maybe you go to the gym all the time because fitness is your highest value. Like, that's okay. I don't think, I guess I feel like the fantasy nightmare pedestal pit relationship thing is separate from the 7 areas of life.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Because I confuse those.
Yeah.
I'm trying to put those two things together in a way.
Like, it's really separate because, well, let me say this. It's separate, but it's not separate, because we talked about the transformation of traits, right? So it is most wise for each person to empower their 7 areas of life, or balance their 7 areas of life around their axiology. So when 2 people can meet their own needs first,
Yeah. That I get.
then they can meet other areas.
I think 2 people, I think a healthy relationship, 2 people meet their own needs first, and then they make each other better somehow through that.
Yes,
They,
absolutely.
Like, nobody diminishes the other,
Right.
but I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah. And so, that's why it's really important in a relationship to regulate your own, balance your own perception and regulate your own life and empower your own 7 areas of life. But also to know that if you become deficient in one area, your partner will become polarized in that area.
Yeah.
But if you become polarized in that one area, then your partner will become deficient.
This is an entirely different podcast.
It is. It's
quantum
entanglement.
My next question is entirely
Okay,
different
okay.
podcast, especially given a statement that you made today. But I see you said you see a strong pull towards this. I see a strong pull towards this. I see a strong pull towards poly relationships. And I think part of that is because life's become so complicated. Not any one person can give somebody. So, if we're looking for somebody to give us things, we just need symbiotic relationships. Maybe it's 3 of them to fulfill. Like, I think that's where I got what you said today.
Yeah.
But I also triggered back to fantasy of life, to the 7 frickin' value things, whatever that is. You know what I mean? And I triggered back to that. I think that's the attraction, but I don't know. I literally don't.
Yeah, well, again, I think it could be a lot of things. My take or my opinion is, if I agree with you, if you're looking for things outside of yourself, then you can't just have one relationship. But like, what came up for me when I heard you say that is somebody's inability to be with themselves, and somebody's inability to be vulnerable.
I think everybody has to be with themselves, and I don't care whether that's monogamous or poly.
Right, absolutely.
I don't think if you can't be with yourself, you can't be with anybody else.
But I do think, it's that fantasy of like one other person can't give me what I want. So I need this from this person, this from this person, this from this person, when in reality, those constructs are all going to crumble anyway.
I think in 5 years after we run, I don't know, another 50 of these things, we'll sit down, we'll talk about monogamy versus polygamy, or not polygamy, polyamorous.
I don't know how to
polyamorous, whatever it is.
that.
Yeah, whatever.
Polyamory.
I got one more question. Then I want, I guess there's some people want to, give some testimonials on the 3 days that we spent here. The last thing, and then we sort of talked about this a little bit earlier. I want to close the circle in terms of this is not, I thought this was an equestrian retreat, and it's not equestrian retreat. The equestrian is a component to this retreat, but I can't describe it. I can't, it's like you said, it's a little foo-foo. I can't describe it, but I want you, the one thing that I want to, that I'm interested in is the difference between if you are a horse person, whether you, especially if you've ridden horses, you are controlling that horse to do a function for you. Whether it's, and they, you know, they might want to do it for you, but whether it's racing, it's jumping, it's barrels, it's dressage, you are compelling this horse to do something for you in some manner. These horses not only didn't have any exposure to what you were doing, we were not compelling them to do anything. So I want to compare the difference between, I guess you'd call it horsemanship and this groundwork. That's the best words I've got. You do groundwork, but it's not even groundwork like working a horse in a circle pen. It's different.
Yeah, so we're tapping into different attributes of the horse. And I think, you know, again, all horses innately have these attributes. And the science behind it is they're non-predatory herd animals. So they're different from dogs. They're really different from many other species. But we all have what are called mirror neurons. So that's the subconscious part of our brain that mirrors those around us. But horses use mirror neurons as a survival instinct. So if you're in a herd and you aren't doing what everyone else is doing, then you stand out, you get eaten by the wolf. So horses can't turn this on and off. And, you know, I have a whole nother horse training program that actually brings in the principles that I teach in this work that you don't need any horse experience to have. So, you know, it does cross transfer if that's the type of horse rider or trainer you want to be. But anytime when I was just training that I would go to fix a horse problem, it was never a horse problem. It was a people problem, right?
Sure.
And so what horses do, and, you know, we all have this energy field spanning around us, and I call it the morphic field. But when a horse's energy field and your energy field get close to each other, the horse can read your deep-seated emotions through the fine nonverbal cues on your face and your body language, right? Because we express through tiny cues what's really going on in our subconscious, but most of us aren't conscious to know that about each other, even though we can to some degree. Horses do it at a magnified level. So the horses are actually going in and looking at what we're repressing, and they're expressing our repressions. And it actually does happen in horsemanship, but that's a whole nother podcast too.
But we're literally, in our minds, we're compelling the horse to do something, and we're confused why. I mean, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But
yeah. But for the intents and purposes of what we're doing today, and, you know, again, like if you've had experience horse training, you do have to approach this with an open mind. But when a horse is used for training and lesson purposes, their own expressions have to be suppressed in order to do what they do. But when a horse isn't trained by a human to compete, to do a competition, and they can have more full expression, they're definitely more expressive and more challenging. But, you know, I believe that horses know their jobs. And so, you know, it is unique. I use a lot of Mustangs in my program, and several of the Mustangs, you know, have never been ridden. They're safe enough to handle,
right,
but they haven't had a lot of formal training, and they haven't really had to ever fit into a human construct. So they are very, very expressive. You know, the horses that we used for this retreat, they were wonderful. They were everything that they needed to be. They were certainly more amenable and cooperative because they're used to guessing what the person wants and doing what the person wants. So I watched them really try hard to guess and cooperate, which had its own neat element. But still, beyond that, they were doing everything that they needed to do as a reflection of that person.
I just saw attractions and connections that if day one you would have sat down and you would have written, you would have written the score for day 3. It wasn't at all the way day 3 was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part about watching the horses, because again, the horses are reflecting the people. And so by day 3, the people are so different.
Yeah, I didn't take that into account.
Yeah.
I was thinking the horses were different.
No.
Yeah, I didn't take that into account.
But it is. It's always the people, and it's why.
If I could define day 1 by the people, and this is just totally out. Day 1 is confusion and frustration.
Yeah.
Day 2 is almost being broken.
Yes.
Day 3 is transformation.
Yes.
That's how I would define the change in people.
Yep.
In generalization. You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And the horses still sort of I didn't see horses change people,
No.
but I saw horses change behavior.
Yeah, and that is absolutely a reflection of the people, because the horses will show us where our patterns are ineffective, right? Because how we do one thing is how we do many things.
Yeah,
and so,
you said that a lot.
Yeah, the horses pick up on these ineffective
I should have written
patterns.
that down.
I can remind you if you ever
there
forget.
you go.
I know I probably didn't say that enough. So,
Okay, 400 times. I forgot that part.
So yeah, the horses aren't biased. They have no bias, and they live in the present moment. And all they do is reflect what they see.
There were 3 or 4 incidents, throughout, maybe more than that, 5 or 6 incidents throughout 3 days that really struck me. And, I mean, this isn't even the most significant one, but it was the last one that occurred. It was the last horse, the last deal of the last day. And the horse was prouder than anybody witnessing it, was prouder than the person in the ring. The horse was proud of the person in the ring. Like the horse just walked up there and was proud. Like the horse was happy and proud and didn't move. Just
absolutely.
Boom, was totally engaged and happy and proud.
Yep.
And like I say, that wasn't maybe even the most significant one. It was the last one.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, that's the thing I love. And it's such a testament to this work, and the power of it is two different people can walk into a ring with the same horse and get a completely different reaction and a completely different experience. Yeah. And, that's the thing. Our horses tell us so much. We just have to be open and willing to listen to that, because they will constantly mirror how we're showing up.
So I have one more question for you. It's the last question of the day. I want to do whatever Pat has over here. Let's roll through anybody that has any input. Let's do that now. And then I have one last question for you, and we'll put a wrap on this baby.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw 3 testimonials from some ladies that's been through the class. And no names. It's just going to be audio, and the video will be you guys. So that way we're protecting their privacy. They all come from different backgrounds. Their trauma's all different, but I think that their transformation, like you guys just talked about it, is interesting. So we'll throw the video back to you guys, and we'll hear testimonial number 1.
That'd be numero uno.
So this is testimonial number 1.
First off, I'd like to say that thank you, Buck, for inviting me to this event. But I wanted to put some focus on the participants of the retreat, and I would like to thank them for sharing. I myself was dead set on not sharing anything about my personal experience with the group on day 1, but on day 2, when an individual that was there briefly but still attended the event spoke on their experience, it allowed me to want to share mine as well, so they would have more viewpoints and perspectives of that can relate to their situation. And it actually really helped me grow to become more comfortable with sharing that. I feel like being in a group and sharing as a group may empower others to share when they don't feel comfortable speaking about whatever they are struggling with and whatever those obstacles may be for them. But I feel like we heard from participants in the at the retreat that we didn't think we would hear much from, including myself. But yeah, thank you, everyone, for being there.
That was testimonial number 1. Testimonial number 2.
I would like to thank Buck, first of all. He tricked me into coming. I initially was going to this retreat to learn how to help people, when in fact I was the one that needed the most help. My first day showing up, I was overly anxious. Nothing was going right. I actually was sitting there listening to Amanda talk and thinking, this is complete bullshit, and I'm going to leave. I ended up sticking it out, and my phone ended up being disabled by that night. For some unknown reason, my password could not be put in. So I'm still without a phone because it's disabled. Day 2, we all showed up, and the more Amanda talked, the more eager I got. With everything she was saying was so very true in my life, and it was so very hard to align all of my problems. And one of the things that she had us do was to build a jump. And I had this massive jump planned, and I built it with the help of the other ladies there. And she made me realize that that is exactly what I was doing with my life, is I was piling everything on one big, huge jump and expecting myself to do it. And I have learned so much from her, and she has just helped me align my life on the importance of where they need to be and what my goals are. And by today, I feel like a completely new person, a completely new outlook on life, a new outlook on everything. I have goals set that I know I can reach, and it is just a feeling that I never thought I was going to be able to get back. And I'm legitimately happy. So thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you for doing the work.
Awesome. That was testimonial number 2, and then we'll end with testimonial number 3.
Okay, so I'm going to approach this a little bit differently. I have mine all typed out because I'm kind of a planner. I don't want to fuck this up. So operating outside of my axiology completely by standing up here and speaking. But I just went through the 3-day HOOVES retreat with Amanda and Kelly. And when Buck first approached me, I'm not going to lie, I was not receptive. I dismissed it. I didn't need help. I was fine. I'm almost 11 years into what I'm dealing with, so I'm totally fine, right? He kept telling me, it could be beneficial, just give it a try, type of thing. So I figured, what really do I have to lose, right? I wasn't sure what to expect, and as day 1 went along, I wasn't sure this was for me. I wasn't sure I was going to come back. Went home, came back for day 2, And that for me personally was when the work and the heavy shit started. That wasn't easy. And I still kind of, I'm like sweating now because it's like a physical response to what I went through just then, day 2. But as I came into this whole thing, I thought, I'm not going to speak. I'm going to be silent. I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen to what anybody has to say, and I'm going to take in what they have to say, and I'm going to hopefully use that for myself, but I'm not going to speak. I'm with you when a specific person showed up on day 2, and she started speaking, although her trauma was not similar to mine, but we had a lot of the same feelings that were involved in it. I was realizing I was having some of those same feelings, and I don't think I recognized, or maybe I repressed them. I don't know. So as the tears were flowing and feeling like I was in a safe space to talk, I did. As did a couple of us at that point. Amanda will ask tough questions. No lie. You're not going to come into this program unless you're ready. For sure. And you may leave. You may, because I considered it. I considered leaving. And you may leave and not come back because you realize you're not ready for it. It's not going to be easy. But when you're tired of living with guilt, pain, and self-judgment, then you know you're ready for help, and she will help you through it. Or at least put you definitely on your path. 3 days is not a whole lot of time to figure out 11 years of shit, So she at least gets you on your path. She's given me the tools and knowledge to face myself, which is one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to do. The horses bring another element into this, and I am an animal lover at heart, so I enjoyed being in the arena with these beautiful creatures. They do begin to trust and feel and know what you're feeling, and they show it in different ways in their behavior. It's very simple, but until going through Amanda's program, I just viewed them as beautiful horses, right? Day 1, that's all that was to me. Day 1, I was lost in the arena. By day 2 and 3 today especially, they definitely have more to offer if you are open-minded and willing to allow them in.
I just wanted to say thank you to the everybody that participated in the class and having the courage to not only attend the class, but to give your input on the class afterwards. So, yeah, thank you guys. Back to you guys.
So before I ask you the last question, I'm gonna tell you that this wasn't a surprise to me. This what I'm getting ready to share. It's not a surprise to me because I've experienced it a couple of times in my life. But I have very low emotions. I mean, I do not get mixed up in other people's shit. I can do violence and go home and feel like I frickin' did the right thing. You know what I mean? Like have no problem over it. But what I do get pulled into is other people's what I consider to be victimization pain. I get pulled into their pain. It's not mine. I feel no pain for what happened to them or their family or their situation. You know what I mean? But I get pulled into other people's emotions sometimes. And I would tell you I got pulled into other people's emotions more in the last 2 days than the 59 years added together before that. Like there was something about this weekend, and there's only 6 women doing the course with the 7th that, you know, but I did force them all. I literally have a relationship with every single person that came except one. I did not know one person that came, but I knew somebody related. But I had some type of relationship with everybody that came. I knew their stories. I mean, I know their stories. That's why I'm forcing them into this crap. You know what I mean? But I was surprised at how deeply I got pulled into their emotions and their pain. That surprised me. I'm not saying I cried. I'm not saying I ever wiped my eye. I did not. I'm a man. I do not do that kind of shit. Okay, but I'm just saying I got drug into. So what I guess my point in that is, I can't imagine the strength it takes for you to do that, because for me, I would get pulled into every course's emotions and pains, I guess. You know what I mean? Or maybe I wouldn't. Maybe it's just because I know them.
No, so my opinion on that, because I was once like you, and I couldn't hear anyone else's story without crying or feeling horrible feelings for them. And I took that to one of my mentors, and you know, they told me, you know, because I consider myself a coach. Again, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a therapist. I don't want to be those things. I'm a coach. But you can't help someone to the other side of something if you've bought into their story and bought into their pain, you know, and it's not because I don't care. It's because I care deeply enough to see past their story and to see the brilliance and the potential of every person that comes through. Because if I feel sorry for you, how can I ever take you to a place where you don't feel sorry for yourself? And I think one of the biggest things that helped me through that, again, when I went to one of the facilitators' trainings to do what I do, is that, you know, our teacher told us, when you can go back and appreciate every moment of pain in your life, then you can be the vessel for everyone else. Because, you know, when somebody comes to me and they tell me a painful story, I don't feel sorry for them. I'm immediately picking out the other side. I see the other side for them. But I couldn't do that until I did it for me first. So, and that was a lot of work, and that wasn't always comfortable. But, you know, that's where I'm at, and that's what I've committed my life to. And I guess, you know, for me, I mean, I've done this I've done this for hundreds of people. Right. So I know what's on the other side for everyone else, but it's normal. What you experienced is normal.
I'm just saying, I've done that for hundreds of people when I'm in other situations.
Right.
In this situation, I ached every time somebody shared something, or every time somebody did something with a horse, or every time I just wanted them to fucking succeed. Like, come on. You know what I mean? Just right now, like, and then when they would get something, then it was just like this raining of them. Fucking thank God. You know what I mean? Just this raining emotion. But anyway, so I lied. I have 2 questions.
Okay.
The most interesting question that I found in your entire handbook. What superpower would you have, Amanda?
Well, I think I changed mine based on, who was it? It was Yvonne, right? Did you say you would snap your fingers and have like all the house and everything clean?
Yeah, you're gonna clean your house.
I'm stealing Yvonne.
So my initial thought, because you know I'm answering some of this stuff in my head.
Yeah, we knew you. We knew you were playing along.
I'm not writing it down because I'm afraid somebody will find my frickin' piece of paper, right? You know, but I'm playing it in my head. So my initial thought is, I want X-ray vision, right? I want to see through girls' clothes. That was my number one. Like and I had a hard time overcoming that. Like, I'm like,
what other superpower would you have?
Right?
Would Buck
No,
have?
I had a hard time. I'm like, well, there's got to be something better than that. I don't know. That may be the best. I'm still not convinced, but I literally, and this is no bullshit, I literally landed and said, I don't want a superpower. I want to fuck up, and I want to figure it out, and I want to do better tomorrow. Because if I have superpowers, then I'm not going to do better tomorrow. I'm just going to be the same every day.
You're right. Superpowers.
So that's where I came to. Although the X-ray vision thing still, the X-ray vision thing still.
I feel like you might
Hey, baby.
be being a little inauthentic right now.
Wow, looking good over there. Hey, Katie, how you doing, huh? Happy to see me? No, yeah, the X-ray vision thing still tweaks me. But I did come to it didn't take me long after X-ray vision. It didn't take me long to go, I don't want one. Because I don't want to be the same every day. I want to get better. I want to do things. I'm an old man now. I want to shoot better than I did yesterday. I want to punch harder than I did yesterday. And I know it's going to end. All that's going to end. Physical shit ends, but I still want to be better than I was yesterday. Anyway, so you want to clean your house.
Well, I just want everything that I want to delegate, I want to just snap my finger.
Okay,
and I'll
that's
tell you
cool.
why, because I'm impatient.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we've all established that.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
My last question to you is around 15, 16-ish, if I hear your story from the podcast and from what I've listened to the last 3 days. Yeah, and maybe it's 14 to 18, but in that area, you were struggling. You were rebelling. You were fighting your mom. You were getting called in the principal's office. Mm-hmm. What advice would Amanda give Amanda? Your age now, what advice would you give Amanda then?
Oh, damn. Well,
That's how we're going to end it. So this has to be profound.
you know that I'm not in the business of giving advice.
Yeah, except you have to because it's you. What would you ask her? What would you ask her then? What's the question you would ask her?
If I could go back and give.
Well, you're now, but you're going back in time.
Yeah,
You're going to give her.
I feel like I had to write a paper on this in college, so I feel like I've already done this. I just don't remember what I
was
said.
actually your professor. You just don't
So,
remember
yeah.
me. I didn't have this magnificent goatee then.
Well, it obviously wasn't that profound if I can't remember it. I would just say, keep doing everything you're doing, because again, it's like I wouldn't.
But you know how it's going to turn out now.
Yeah, I guess I would just say the one piece of advice I would give little Amanda is believe in yourself.
All right.
Believe in yourself.
So what's my shirt say?
KFG. Keep fucking going. Okay, look.
Oh, the universe aligned, didn't it? The horse stomped his back left foot. The horse aligned. Huh?
Chop wood, carry water.
There you go.
Chop wood, carry water. That at the end of the day, definitely chop wood, carry water.
You got anything else? Because I don't want to cut you short.
Yeah. We've got to be at like
I
2.5
don't know. I don't want to
hours.
cut you short. So, this was a fantastic 3 days. And I'm not even tracking necessarily your entire curriculum point for point because I'm thinking about your curriculum in areas that I teach and things that I do. And the whole time I'm thinking, crap, man, this is like I said, this is parenting, this is relationships, this is post-traumatic growth, this is, but everybody has trauma. So it applies this doesn't have anything to do with veterans. It doesn't have anything to do with women who are abused. It doesn't have anything to do with people who have been universally bitch slapped. Everybody fucking has trauma. And everybody, not for the most part, everybody represses that trauma and just drives on in life not knowing their axiology.
Yes.
And they can't figure out. I think I think that's why I'm so stupidly happy. Is I pretty much know who I am and I don't care what people think.
Yeah. That's the key to happiness.
Yeah, I think is I'm stupidly happy being a moron and not being smart and being a dick and doing all these things. But that's who I am.
Yeah.
So I just be who I am. You know what I mean? And I think that there is so much work out there for this program. And I hope, I don't know that my facilities or my setup is worthy of your program, but I'm seeing down the road, I think there's a lot of work we can do in Kansas together.
Absolutely. I mean, Buck, when I started this program, my husband literally took pallets and built shanties, and we slept in the middle of a field with horse shit, and we ate in a barn aisle full of flies, and no one cared. Because it's not about the facility, it's about the work.
Yeah.
And it's about creating the ripple effect. And, my biggest hope, again, I throw a lot of shit at people in a short amount of time. I know it's not all going to stick. It's not all meant to stick. But it's for every person to take what they got out of it and to use it and to share it and to create that ripple effect.
And I know you wanted to do 4 days. I know you didn't want people to go home. But I couldn't have sold it to these people.
You know what?
Like I literally sold what I could sell to these people. It was 3 days, you can go home if you want. You know what I mean?
Yep, and
that's
I knew
all
that.
I could sell.
And that's why I came.
Yeah.
And that's why I came.
Because he didn't know that.
No, I knew that. I knew because I'm like, hey, you want to? Oh, I don't. Well,
Yeah.
Had I said, hey, do you want to come live on site? You're not going home. You're not. Everybody be like, fuck you,
No.
right?
And I knew that, and and I told Kelly, I'm like, we just got to expose them to the word.
Yeah, exactly.
Because people, you can never comprehend what you're about to step into until you step in.
And the difference between this group is they didn't contact us wanting to come. I contacted them to come do because we needed to do a program.
Yeah, we did.
So I contacted them to come do the program. So I get we did some trade-offs and stuff.
It
And
worked out just exactly.
I just
how
know
it's
day
supposed
one
to.
they literally mostly hated me for doing this.
Yeah, well,
day
everybody
one.
hates me on day one. I'm used to it. So if you don't hate me on day one, I'm not doing a good job.
So this was it was a great time. The weather was what it was. I gotta hand it to every participant because it sucked for me, and I did not have the mental trauma that the pressure you put them on, and I don't even think you put them under pressure. You just ask them questions and they put themselves under, like they put themselves in a pressure cooker and turned it up on themselves. I don't think you did that much. You just asked them questions. But there was a lot of emotional stress and pressure day one, day two, even early day 3, and then you did. But when you said, hey, read your mission statement, they're all like, what? Out loud? Like all of a sudden now we're all relieved, but now we have to tell people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You just stepped into accountability.
Yes. I mean, that everything had this next element to it. And I just thought it was an amazing 3 days. Had a great time. I learned a ton. I mean, I learned one thing. I'm the most normal. In fact, if you look normal in Wikipedia, it's going to say Buck Petticord now. I'm normal. I'm balanced. My balance is perfect on the 3 layers of natural things on that circle because we don't need all 7. We only need 3 of the 7. So I'm perfectly balanced. I learned all these things, but it was a great time. I appreciate you taking a risk and coming to Kansas. And I cannot thank the ladies enough for their time, their commitment, and the risk that they took. Not in terms of the universe, the risk they took in themselves. Mm-hmm. And it was very, it was emotional to watch. Okay. It was a lot of fun. So anyway, I want to thank anybody that stuck with this. Hey, the 3-4 of you that are still out there, 1-2 of you. All right. None of you are out there anymore. Watch it later, whatever, however many are there, thanks for sticking it out. Look up HOOVES. It's 501c. You want to donate some money, man, that'd be a good place to do it. So anyway, that's it. Bye from the world famous Carousel Room in fabulous downtown Wamego, Kansas.